Locations in the comments. Everybody put your locations in the comments. And we will get started in a moment. We're back to our favorite topic this morning. Give me your locations in the comments. Tell me where you are checking in from. We're going to get started in a minute. Make sure if you have not yet to send me a text message to my text message number. My number 305-384-6894. The number is in my bio. If you're watching on TikTok, it's in the pinned comments. If you're watching on every other app, make sure you text me so you get into my texting community. That text goes out. That text goes out every day to daily motivation. Monday motivation goes out every week. Weekly motivation goes out every week. Make sure you text me if you're not in my community yet. Number again, 305-384-6894. You're not in my text community yet, get in. Just send me that text. Send me a text, 305-384-6894. Give me your locations in the comments, folks. Locations in the comments. Locations in the comments. We are getting started in a minute. I'm just posting a couple things to my IG story right now. For those of you who are not following me on Instagram, my Instagram name is @Dre Baldwin. That's DREBALDWIN. Make sure you text me. I'm just posting a couple of screenshots from people who text me back from today is Tuesday. So yesterday we sent out the weekly motivation. If you did not get the weekly motivation text that I sent out yesterday, there's only one reason why you didn't get it. Actually, there's only two reasons why you couldn't get it. Either A, you ain't pay your phone bill, so you're not getting text messages, or B, you're not in my text community. So make sure you text me the number again, 305-384-6894. Make sure you're in my text community. The number is in my bio. Those of you watching on TikTok is in the pinned comment. If you're watching anywhere else, make sure you give me your locations in the comments, folks. I'm just updating my social media story right now real quick. Give me your locations in the comments, folks. Locations in the comments. And again, 305-384-6894. And if you go to my IG story, you'll see, actually, I'll post some of these probably in my TikTok story too, if I remember. Might do it right now while I'm waiting. Give me locations in the comments, folks. Locations in the comments. We're going to get started in a minute. Make sure we are good everywhere. We're live on Rumble. Good morning, Rumble. Live on YouTube. Good morning, live on X. Let me make sure we are working accurately, not accurately, but correctly on X. Yes, we are live on X. Good morning, live on LinkedIn. Yes, my name on LinkedIn and X and YouTube and Rumble is @Dre All Day. I'm live on Facebook, Facebook.com/Work on Your Game University, and live on Instagram @Dre Baldwin. Angela Thomas, good morning from Pinehurst, North Carolina. And we are live on TikTok @Work on Your Game. Give me your locations in the comments. Make sure you have text me so you're in my text community. I'm going to post some of these in my TikTok story too so y'all can see it. The only thing about TikTok stories, they put this music on there automatically. You can't turn it off. I don't know what this shit is. TikTok needs to do something about this. They've been doing this the whole time on TikTok. Every time you post something to TikTok story that doesn't have sound, it automatically gets music. Who wants to put music behind every post? I don't. But let me do this real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Today's topic, we are talking about the Department of Homeland Security / ICE. They sent some troops. Into Chicago last week. This is still a bubbling topic, so we're going to talk about that here today. We would have talked about it yesterday, but we talked about the P. Diddy situation. Now we're going to talk about this one finally here today. So as y'all are coming in, again, give me your locations in the comments. Let me shout out a few people in the comments, and then we will get to it. So let's see. The number 305-384-6894. Numbers in my bio, or if you just look at my story on TikTok, I just posted some screenshots from people replying back to me, so y'all will see it there as well. Let's see. Courtney, good morning. Nikki, good morning. Good to see both of you. Murphy the Mutt, Bristol, Tennessee is in the building. Billy Jean from Indiana. Aquarian Genius, Apopka, Florida. I have heard of that. Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Fort Baptiste, good morning. Thank you for the share. Carol Ann Collins from Newburgh, New York. 140.6 Walnut Creek, California. Murphy the Mutt, thanks for the share. TikTok's Most Hated from Alabama. Quail Ridge from Lincoln, California. Because I Can, checking in from Kansas. Giga Dad, checking in from North Carolina. Marky Man, Sacramento. Missy Hall, the number 305-384-6894, checking in from Maryland. Quail Ridge, thanks for the share. B. Henry 34, thanks for the follow. Rory Hop said ICE has gone too far. We're going to discuss that. We're going to figure that one out. Johnny 21, thanks for the follow. Linda Gale 1935, good morning. The topic here today, folks. The DHS ran up into Chicago last week. We're going to talk about how it happened, why it happened, what happened, and how we feel about it. What do we think about this? Has ICE gone too far? Had they not gone too far? I'm not sure yet. J. Rocket checking in from Delaware. B. Henry 34 from 229 Adele, Georgia. I don't know what that means, but all right. Shout out to B. Henry 34. Marsha, good morning. Pretty Lady checking in from Virginia. Pretty Lady A from Virginia. All right. So what happened is DHS launched what they call Operation Midway Blitz. I guess Midway they're talking about. Who was it that said that? Yeah, Midway Blitz, which is basically based around Chicago, in the Chicago area. And they were saying this was the DHS official language. I'll shout out a couple more of you here. And let's see. Just a guy said, wouldn't have to happen had Biden not opened the border wide open. Okay, fair argument. We'll get to that. Crystal Lickert from Pittsburgh. Rory Hop from Central New York State. Karen Stackhouse from Virginia. And Jamie Ray said the protesters have gone too far. So we already got some conflicting arguments here. We'll get into all of this. So DHS said they wanted to target, quote unquote, criminal illegal aliens and gangs. That's what DHS said they want to do. So by October 1st, that first couple of days of October, the department claimed that they had made 800 to 900 arrests in Illinois, mostly in the Chicago area. They released raid video from a South Shore apartment building where they detained 37 people. Some of them alleged members of a gang, Trinde Aragua. That's a big gang that allegedly has sent a bunch of people to America. And they've gone to different cities in America. They're trying to get these people out of here, according to DHS. They even requested a temporary flight restriction from the FAA during parts of the operation. In other words, they thought DHS, it looks like they were looking at certain people maybe trying to get on airplanes and get out of there. DHS requested that the Federal Aviation Authority block flights from leaving temporarily because they were trying to catch some people who they thought were trying to run. Now, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, who, if you're in Chicago, y'all voted for this guy. I don't know why you voted for him. Before that, you had, what was the woman that was the mayor of Chicago before him? What was her name? I can't remember her name. What was the mayor of Chicago before Brandon Johnson? Because he beat her. What was that woman's name? Somebody put in the comments the name of the mayor of Chicago before Brandon Johnson came in and beat this woman. I don't know why y'all voted for, Lori Lightfoot. Yes. I don't know why y'all voted for Brandon Johnson. I don't know why y'all voted for Lori Lightfoot either, but y'all voted for them. This is what y'all want to do. Elections have consequences. Y'all got Brandon Johnson. So here's what Brandon Johnson did and what he had to say. Him and JB Pritzker, who is the governor of Illinois, they blasted the tactic. Of course, we talked about this about a week and a half ago. They said that some of the circulating clips were old, that DHS was using old clips to justify current activity, and they emphasized that the city and the state won't assist civil immigration enforcement while the protests at the Broadview ICE facility, that's in Illinois, escalated and a local lawsuit challenged DHS fencing there. So basically this is political fighting and citizens are getting caught in the crossfire in the process of them actually catching some real criminals. That's what's happening. So immigration is a federal power. So sanctuary rules do not bind federal agents. So the DHS, ICE, and CBP. This is the Border Patrol, that's the Immigration Customs Enforcement, and Department of Homeland Security. They can execute administrative warrants anywhere they want, including within the 100-mile border zone, quote unquote, that covers Chicagoland. Now, courts have recently blocked parts of the administration's attempted expansion of expedited removal, but existing Title VIII authorities, this is all legalese, they still allow arrests away from the border. And that's the lane the DHS says it is using. So this becomes a legal battle. In short, DHS and ICE are saying we are operating within the confines of the law because we're doing things this way and this way. And then Chicago and Illinois, the municipalities, they're saying that ICE is violating the law because they're doing things that way and that way. So this becomes a legal battle. And again, is anything actually getting done here to help anybody in the long run? In the big picture, probably not. But a few people are getting arrested. Now, supporters say that this is a lawful crackdown on criminals. Critics say that this is a military-style tactic. It's opaque. You're sweeping in non-citizens, even a U.S. citizen in error by accident. You might even bring in somebody non-criminals, excuse me, and even a U.S. citizen in error. And people are calling this the Gestapo, and they're saying that this is more fascism from Donald Trump, and this is the military running the states and the cities, and civilians in America, citizens, should be afraid because this is Donald Trump just doing more to expand his power and do more things that are outside the confines of the law just because he's the president. And of course, on social media, this has become a big thing. I just heard this morning that Mayor Johnson in Chicago, he just put a ban on ICE entering or coming around certain facilities in Chicago so that they can't even come in the building. So they can't go to the bathroom. They can't go get some water. They can't come inside if it rains or it snows or it's hot. They can't even go in these buildings. Brandon Johnson has created these basically no ICE zones. And this is the best that he can do with his political power to fight against ICE. And we all know that big picture why they're doing this is because Pritzker and Johnson are very staunchly Democrat. Donald Trump is, I guess you could call him Republican, but he's really MAGA. And MAGA is closer to Republican than it is Democrat, but it's kind of his own party. And the Democrats are strongly against Donald Trump. So they had to do anything they can to make a show of we're going against anything that Donald Trump says or does or allegedly thinks. And this is all part of the game. So we're going to talk about whether this is okay or if it's not okay, all based around the centering point of our most popular topic, which is President Donald Trump. Let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of a few books, done a few TED Talks. I run this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. Our job over here is to help you weaponize discipline through systems and performance. We can just keep it as simple as that. You can learn more about working with me by going to the links in my bio. Make sure you text me at the number that you see in my bio or in the pinned comment. The number is 305-384-6894. Send out a daily motivation text every morning. And I send out a weekly motivation text every week. If you're in my text community, you will get those texts. Again, the number 305-384-6894. Just text the word live, L-I-V-E, L-I-V-E. Text the word live to that number. You'll be in my text community and you'll learn more about all the stuff that we do through the text that I send out and direct interaction with me because I do respond to my text messages. So let's get into this. So federal authority versus sanctuary limits. That's the basics of what this is all about, because the city of Chicago has become notorious over the last, how long are we talking? I mean, Kanye West was talking about murders in Chicago like early in his rap career. So we're talking, 2006, 7? So let's say 20 years. For 20 years, Chicago has been known as a place that has had crime issues. Let's just say that, to keep it simple. And for whatever reason, actually, we know the reason. I just told you the reason. The Democrats who have run Chicago for a long time, I don't know how long it's been since Chicago has had a Republican mayor. Maybe one of you can tell me. They have resisted any type of help from anything that is not Democrat. The problem is any help from Democrats hasn't solved anything. This is why you had Lori Lightfoot for years. You have Brandon Johnson now. Nothing is changing about the crime issues in Chicago, even though they claim crime is down, and we know they can play around with the stats. So with Donald Trump saying that Chicago is looking like a problem area, we know Donald Trump does this. Yes, in some parts, he is saying there is a real problem in Chicago, and as the president, I want to solve the problem in Chicago. Is that part of why he's saying it? Let's just say, give him the benefit of the doubt and say yes. The other part of it is he's going after someone who is a Democrat, and he's going after a Democrat stronghold, which is the city of Chicago. And he's using a problem that Chicago has as a tool against them, and then saying, well, I'll use my powers as president to go in there and help them, which also makes them look bad, which makes them look incapable of solving their own problems, because now here's the president. He has to come in and solve problems for them that they couldn't solve for themselves. Is he doing that as well? Of course he is. So this is all part of the political game. So what happens there is that the people in Illinois, that's the governor and the mayor, Pritzker and Brandon Johnson respectively, they're going to push back in whatever way they can push back. So they are coming out, and they jumped in front of this. When Donald Trump first announced on social media that he might send people into Chicago, both Pritzker and Johnson came out and made statements and no, we don't want Donald Trump. And then they put out little videos on social media. Oh, look at this. Chicago is looking great today. There are people walking along the water path, and people at the park, and people going in. What was the other thing they had there? People had there was a 10K race or a marathon in Chicago, and there are no problems. I don't see any crime happening here. And of course, any of you been in a big city, you understand there are parts of that city that you probably don't want to go after the sun goes down. And there are parts in the city that are always nice because they're nice parts of town. There are police around. There are high cost areas, and those places are usually heavily policed, taken care of, and they're clean. So there could be crazy things going on one side of town, and it's beautiful on the other side of town at the same time on the same day. Any of you've ever been to a big city, you understand that. So the governor or the mayor putting out some video that says, oh, well, here I am I'm in Chicago and it's nice right now and nothing crazy is happening, so I don't know what Donald Trump is talking about. That's complete nonsense. Doesn't mean it can't be nice in that town all the time, but is that the case? We know that that's not the case. And why they are even doing that in 2025, like people can tell the difference. So immigration enforcement, I think all of you may generally understand this. Enforcing immigration is a federal power under the Immigration and Nationality Act, which means cities can refuse to help DHS if DHS decides to come into a city, but a city cannot stop DHS from serving warrants, and the city cannot stop DHS from making arrests. In other words, if the president or the federal government believes that there are people who have violated immigration enforcement in your city, even if you don't want me to send, let's say I'm the president, and I want to send troops into your city to get those people who have violated DHS laws, I can send people in that city whether you want me to or not. All right, that's the way it works. Please get the likes up, folks. Let's like the live. We're at 9,000 likes. Get the likes up, please. So if I want to send people in, I can send people in. Now, if you don't want me to send people in, you can get on the internet and you can say whatever you want to say. You can get on social media. You can do press conferences. You can post on X like Gavin Newsom. You can do whatever you want to do. But you can't stop me. You don't have to help if you don't want to. You are not required to help me. But you can't stop me from coming in. So if I want to serve a warrant, I want to make an arrest, I can. So the conflict here is the police officers, let's say in Chicago, as instructed by their mayor, are not to help DHS find certain people, but they can't block them from finding certain people. So now this just looks like this is just a clown show. Is that we have federal authorities coming in trying to find people who may be gang members or people who are violating immigration laws in your city. The cops are not going to help us, but we're trying to do our job. And again, who's winning in this process? If Donald Trump truly believes that there are people in Chicago who are violating the law, immigration laws, and the cops in Chicago don't want to help, I'm asking, how does that look to the residents of Chicago? We voted this person as the mayor. And if Trump truly believes what he's doing, that they're trying to find certain people, why would you not help? Why would you not get involved? All in the name of politics, but at the same time, you might be kind of screwing over your citizens. The only argument they have is if there are not any gang members there are not gang members, but there are not people who have violated DHS laws in our city. So there's no need for Donald Trump to come into town. Here's the problem. For those of you who may be anti-Trump, or you're a Democrat, or you support Brandon Johnson, or you support whatever Chicago/Illinois is doing, is that in all their statements that they made, Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, never once has any of them said, we don't have people undocumented in our city. Never once have they said that. They never said, we don't have a problem of undocumented people being in our city or our state. Therefore, we don't need DHS's help. They didn't say that. What they said is that we don't want Donald Trump. They made the whole thing about Donald Trump. Their whole frame is Trump. We don't want Trump coming into our town. We don't want Trump militarizing the federal government to come into cities. We don't want Trump bothering our citizens. We don't want Trump to be trying to expand his power base by using DHS and federal authorities. We don't want to help Donald Trump. Everything that they're talking about is all about how Donald Trump is bad, and they are basically fighting against Donald Trump. That's been their whole argument the entire time. The problem with this frame, and this is how they mislead the public, is that they get everybody excited paying attention to that, which is we don't want Donald Trump doing whatever they want to call negative. The problem is, even if you don't like Donald Trump, there is some argument that what Donald Trump is doing is solving a real problem that's happening in Chicago. Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker are not addressing the real problem that Donald Trump is talking about. And yes, Donald Trump is being hyperbolic. Is Donald Trump hyperbolic? He's always hyperbolic. Every time he talks, he speaks in hyperboles, whether he's talking positively or negatively. He's talking directionally, he uses hyperbole. So he wants to make something look good. He says it's amazing, tremendous, it's brilliant, it's exciting, it's the best ever. If he wants to make it sound terrible, then he calls it a war zone, or it's horrible, or it's destructive, or everything's falling apart, and we must go in there and stop it because otherwise it will never change and will never get better because the mayor and the governor are completely ineffective and useless. So he's not helping his cause with the rational, logically thinking person with these arguments, with most of them. I understand what he's doing. Most people do not. But the people who are easily excitable, they are driven by this. And most people are more easily excitable by emotion than they are thinking about things rationally and logically. So when Donald Trump says this place is terrible in Chicago, I got to go in there and fix it, then he's actually setting the table for Pritzker and Johnson to come in and say, well, look at this video of me standing along the waterway in a nice part of town. Nothing terrible is happening, as if they're refuting Donald Trump, but they're ignoring the main point. So Donald Trump's kind of playing them because the average person can still look at that and see, okay, we know that there's crime happening in Chicago, mayor or governor. Y'all haven't refuted the fact that there's a crime problem. Y'all haven't refuted the fact that there's an illegals problem. All you're doing is addressing the thing that he said, the hyperbolic part, but you're not addressing the actual issue. What are you doing? And this is where I come back to the residents of Chicago, the voters. Y'all voted for this guy. Y'all voted for this. So I don't know what to say to help you all out, citizens of Chicago. Y'all voted for this guy. He's ignoring the main issue to make it look like he's, quote unquote, standing up to Donald Trump. This is what we see everybody saying. This is the new frame. You're running for mayor or governor of a state, or you are the mayor or the governor of a state. And your new talking point is that you're, quote unquote, standing up to Donald Trump. Well, he's the president. You're just a governor. You're just the mayor. How are you standing up to him? He has more power than you. Are there 50 of you or 1,000 of you, and there's only one of him? So how are you standing up to him? It doesn't even make sense. Gavin Newsom's using this. Brandon Johnson, Pritzker's using this. New York City, your new mayor. Well, looks like it's going to be your new mayor. Good luck with that. All right. His whole frame is I'm standing up to Donald Trump. The only person who tried to stand up to Donald Trump was Kamala Harris. You saw how that worked out. And I guess Joe Biden by extension, if he can even stand up anymore. And we saw how that worked out. So no, you can't stand up to somebody. You're not on the same level. You're all the way down here. He's all the way up there. How are you standing up to him? But anyway, their whole frame is they just want to go against Donald Trump. Anything Donald Trump says or does, they got to prove they're going against it. And this gets some of their base excited. Yeah, not Trump, not Trump, not Trump. The problem is, while Democratic voters are getting all excited about not supporting or standing up to Donald Trump, the actual issue is not being addressed. And this is the problem for citizens in cities where your Democratic elected officials, your Gavin Newsom's, your Zoran Mondami, he didn't win yet, Brandon Johnson's, J.B. Pritzker's, their whole frames are about, I'm against Trump. But there's an issue within what Trump is saying. What about that? Nobody wants to talk about that. So we're just going to ignore that. So as long as I show you that I'm going against Trump, then the actual issue can be ignored, and that's acceptable. It wouldn't be acceptable to me, but I don't know. I don't live in Chicago. I live in Florida. All right, so we got Ron DeSantis. All right, we're in a red state. Ron DeSantis and Trump ain't much of friends, but it's still a red state. I don't know. Y'all tell me, those of you who live in these places. All right, so this is why arrests proceeded despite City Hall's non-cooperation state. The reason DHS did all the things that they did, and they broadcasted this. They put videos on social media. Did y'all see the videos they put out? White House and DHS, they put out videos showing what they were doing, kind of like They put out videos the way an athlete might put out videos of they had a good game, or an athlete doing a workout in the off season. They put out these videos like showing you, look at what we're doing in Chicago, arresting people. And there are people who tried to make those videos seem like they were a bad thing. Like, hey, y'all are maybe you zip tied some kids. This is what the Democratic paid influencers are saying. You all zip tied kids and wait a minute, here we go. All right. You all zip tied kids and you may be arresting black people. And I saw some white people on X saying, oh, well, black people are now getting arrested. And this is the white savior thing that I call white people out on this bullshit. And I said to some woman on X a few days ago, like, yo, you're not even black. Mind your fucking business. And no, we don't have a problem with DHS, actually, because a lot of times when these not organizations, when people who are not legal, undocumented, come into the country and they settle somewhere, they're not going to some white suburb with a bunch of white people because they would stand out too easily. They'd be too easily pointed out. Where they go? They go into the black communities. They go into the communities where the black people are and where the legal brown people are. Why? Because they can blend in. They don't stand out as much if they go in a community like that. So the black people who live in these neighborhoods who are not doing anything illegal and are just regular citizens, they're moving into where we live. They're not moving into where it's just all white people. They're moving into where it's all black people. And then you got some white people working some damn college campus. You couldn't find a hood with fucking Google Maps. Now you want to get on X and talk like you're defending black people. No, shut the fuck up. We don't hear that shit. You're not speaking for black people. But just that's neither here nor there, at least for now. Now, some say that this is authoritarian overreach. That Time and The Guardian, these are news platforms, allegedly, they describe military-style tactics. So that's what they're calling this to try to make it seem crazy. So y'all got to notice the language games that they play. Please keep liking the live over there on TikTok. We got to get to 100,000 likes here. We're at 20,000. Please keep liking the live. So they call it military-style tactics in the cities because that's designed, that language is designed to get you afraid of what the DHS is doing. Because that would make you like the military. Like, why would the military be coming to our cities? You think the military walking through a city is like some kind of war zone, which is what Trump kind of said. And they're trying to make people afraid of whatever DHS may do or what DHS represents by calling it military style, because they did use helicopters, they used flashbangs, and they used pepper balls. Pepper balls was basically pepper spray. And rough treatment of protesters and journalists at Broadview. So rough treatment of protesters and journalists. Well, it depends. Is that rough treatment warranted? Last time I checked, if you get in the way of a law enforcement officer, federal or local, from doing their job, whether you're getting in their way by protesting, you get in their way by blocking them, you get in their way by getting all excited and moving a little bit too close to the barriers or too close to the lines. If there's a line of officers and they say stay back from the line and you keep getting closer to the line, and then you get popped in the face or knocked on your ass, well, you kind of asked for it. That's what you signed up for. You decide you want to play that game. I've never done anything like that, but I have seen and know of people who have done that. And if that's what you choose to do, then you know what you're signing up for. Yes, you might get treated roughly. You might get knocked on your ass. You might get arrested. You might get beat down because you're getting in the way of the officers doing their job. Now, I don't think it's smart, regardless of what the First Amendment says. If there's somebody out there who has a baton and a gun and pepper spray and a taser and whatever other weapons law enforcement officers have, if they got that and you don't, why would you go antagonizing them verbally? Even if you think it's First Amendment defended. This is just the way that I look at things, just as a rational person. Even if the First Amendment says you have a right to do it, you have a right to protest, you have a right to peacefully gather, and you have a right to say what you want to say against any organization that you want to say it against. I just don't think it rationally makes any sense. That there's a line of guys, they're mostly men, right? Probably some women. They have badges, they got guns, they got shields, they have material to protect themselves physically, they got tasers, they got maybe more than one gun, and there's a whole bunch of them, and there's a handful of you. They are way more organized than you, they're more trained than you, they're bigger than you, they're stronger than you, they're more tactically trained than you are. You're going to go antagonize them verbally to the point that they might knock you on your ass. So what are you going to do? Fight? So you're going to get a bloody nose all so that you can prove a point and post it on Instagram? I'm not signing up for that. I don't know. Any of you into that? Is any of you into that? Put yes in the comments if you're a type of person who would do something like that. I'm not doing that shit. I don't know if any of you is that type of person. Put no if you're not that type of person. Put yes if you are. And even if you have a weapon, even if you got a gun, even if you lift weights and you're strong and you're tactically trained, what about your peers? Are all of you as organized as they are? It's not the kind of thing I would sign up for. But so when I see protesters out there trying to get in the face of law enforcement officers, whether we're talking cops, DHS, you're trying to block ICE from driving their trucks out of the neighborhood and all this shit that I see people doing. Mostly this is white people. White people, y'all listening to this is y'all. I don't see black people doing this stupid shit. I don't see black people doing this. I don't see black people running up on DHS vehicles trying to stop them from leaving the neighborhood. This is some white people shit. So I got to put this on the white Americans, those of you who are listening to this right here. I don't see black people running up trying to block DHS from getting illegals out of the city or out of the country. No. Now, I did see black people getting all excited when it was like the George Floyd thing because that was a black guy. But DHS is getting people who don't belong in the country out of the country. Black people are like, okay, now y'all go, good luck, DHS. I'll see y'all later. I'm not involved. I'm staying in the house. Y'all do what y'all got to do. Don't involve me. And some people are trying to rope black people into this. And yeah, that's crazy. So civil liberties groups argue that these methods chill First Amendment activity and traumatize families. Maybe. But your family might get traumatized if you did something stupid enough that you got retaliation from law enforcement officers. I'm just not a fan of getting in the way of law enforcement officers doing their jobs. It's just not a smart thing because you don't have the tools that they have. You don't have the weapons they have. You don't have the leeway that they have. And even if you got other people with you, y'all are not as organized as they are. So if push comes to shove, you're getting your ass kicked. Why would you sign up to get your ass kicked? I don't understand. I don't understand what has to be going through somebody's mind. And you're going to voluntarily go and get in the way of some people who have more weapons than you, is more of them than you, and you're not as organized as they are. So you know you're going to get beat up. And you go in there anyway. Why would you do that? I don't understand it. Does somebody have to explain that to me? So scope and target DHS highlights. So DHS says that they arrested 900 people. They arrested 900 people since September. And they did a raid in South Shore that netted, South Shore is a part of Chicago. They netted 37 more people. Some of them allegedly tied to this gang in, I don't know where this gang is from, Trinidad, Aragua. And people try to claim they're not part of the gang when they get caught. And then it becomes a legal battle, and then they try to deport the people, and then it gets to the Maryland man situation. That's the whole, is like that. A whole bunch of legal battles back and forth. And then you get Democrats, coming on the internet talking about, well, we beat Donald Trump in court. Now, all that means is you made an argument, and you got a Democrat-appointed judge who's going to lean with you on the way that you're interpreting the law. Then there's a back and forth, and it just keeps going, and eventually they end up losing. Because if somebody's here without proper documentation, they're going to get kicked out one way or another at one point or another. Just a matter if we do it today or we do it tomorrow. But it's going to happen. So them saying that we beat Donald Trump in court is not actually proving anything. It's just them just trying to win points on social media. The problem is winning points on social media does not win elections. If you don't believe that, let me remind you of what happened last fall with Kamala Harris. Wasn't she dominating social media for about 107 days? And then what happened on election day? Let's always keep that in mind whenever you see somebody claiming a victory on social media, especially a politician. So DHS also publicized cases of suspects accused of ramming ICE vehicles. So people are attacking ICE vehicles. Again, I don't think this is a good idea. All you're going to do is eventually you're going to get caught. You're going to get subdued. You're going to get arrested. And from what I hear, y'all tell me if y'all heard the same thing, is that if you are antagonized, especially physically antagonizing a police officer and you get arrested, once they get you to where there are no cameras, you're really going to get your ass kicked. You might get your ass kicked on camera, but that's not where the real work happens. The real work happens when the cameras are off and they get you down at that precinct. And that's when you really get your ass kicked. At least that's what I've heard. And now, again, I want to keep it. I hope all of you keep it to just hearing about it rather than experiencing it. But why people sign up for this, I don't know. Anyway, so the department frames the blitz as aimed at violent offenders and gang-linked actors. So this is what the department, DHS, is saying. They're trying to find violent offenders. They want to find people who are connected to gangs, and they're trying to solve the crime problem in Chicago. I think this would be solved better if the city of Chicago would cooperate and just say, hey, here are the people who we know are gang members. Here's the places where the gangs hang out. We'll give you inside information because we live here, we work here every day. So the city of Chicago's officers probably have more intelligence on where to go and how to solve problems than DHS has. So DHS has to go in cold because the city of Chicago won't help them. And the city of Chicago, I guess they call themselves proving a point because they're not going to help Donald Trump. But the problem is, by not helping Donald Trump, they're not helping solve the crime problem. There are citizens of Chicago who actually want the crime problem solved. City of Chicago does not have the resources or the skill, one or the other, to solve the crime problem. So they'd rather not solve the crime problem just to prove that they're not going to cooperate with Donald Trump. Again, how is this helping the citizens? So this is the catch-22 that Mayor Johnson and his department are putting themselves in by not supporting Donald Trump. And if you ask him questions about it, all he's going to do is keep reiterating Trump, 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 while not actually addressing the issue, which is crime, crime, and crime. And again, City of Chicago, y'all elected this guy. All right, this is the guy y'all elected. So, I mean, what are you doing? I don't know. I can't answer the question. Now, the transparency gap here is that local outlets note the DHS has shared few identifiers. It makes it hard to verify how many arrests had criminal records versus status-only violations. In other words, how many actual criminals did they catch? Are they giving out data? So they're not giving data back to the city of Chicago. So this becomes this whole argument. It really is an argument over semantics, because the city of Chicago is saying that, or the media, the left-leaning media is saying that this is military style. They're going into cities. They're going after people in their apartment buildings. They're tying up and zip tying people who have nothing to do with the situation. And then they don't have any data to prove whether that's true or not. So it's just going off of what they say. And people who don't like Trump are going to run with that, and they're going to amplify that message. These are your paid Democratic influencers on X. What's going on, paid Democratic influencers on X? There's a bunch of them. I follow a good number of them. Then you got the people on the other side, DHS, the White House, and MAGA supporters who are saying, well, there's crime in Chicago. There are illegals in Chicago. They're going into Chicago and getting these people, and DHS can self-report what they say they did. So if they say 900, maybe it was only 400. Maybe it was only 300. Maybe it was 100. Maybe it was 900. We don't know, because the two sides are not sharing any information. So it all really comes down to who you want to believe. That's really what this comes down to. It's basically all politics is in the United States. Who do you want to believe? Because they're all lying. It's just a matter of which lie do you want to accept. You want to accept the Democrat lie? You want to accept the Republican lie? Neither one of them is telling you the truth. They're all lying in their own way. The trick is you need to identify what the lie is from both sides, because both sides are lying, and then you got to decide which lie do you like. Do you like the Democrat lie, or do you like the Republican lie? But again, understand, I will emphasize again, neither one of them is telling you the truth. They're just telling you the lie that sounds good to their base. And you decide which base you want to be a part of, this lie or that lie. If you want the truth, you got to go find it yourself, but you're not going to get it from a politician, in case any of you didn't know. So advocates launched a community dashboard to track detentions, and the data vacuum fuels rumors, as I just said, concerns over people's rights, and claims of indiscriminate sweeps. And I understand, but there's a data vacuum. So if you don't have data, how are you going to decide? How do you know? The answer is you don't know. It just goes off of, again, I'll say it for the fifth time, which lie do you want to believe? You want to believe the DHS? You want to believe Chicago? You want to believe the Republicans? You want to believe the Democrats? I don't know. What I would suggest is, if you are in a place like this and there's real crime happening and you're not getting anything solved, and you don't know if DHS is telling the truth or if the local cops are telling the truth, get the hell out of that city. Get in your car or get an Amtrak ticket, pack up your shit, and go move somewhere where there's less crime. That's what I would suggest you do. And you can find a place that has less crime and the cost of living is about the same or probably less than whatever you're paying where you are right now. I would say that's all Americans. There's always somewhere else you can go. Now, how the feds operate in Chicago anyway. So they use ICE, and they use ERO, and they use CBP, and other federal teams. So there's all these acronym federal teams. They joined targeted actions. DHS sought, again, as I said, FAA airspace limits because they want to stop people from leaving. And they staged from federal sites. So they use their federal sites to hold the people. So there's a bunch of federal buildings in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. They use those buildings to have DHS gather and get your weapons and let's talk about our strategy and here's our plan, etc. Because Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, won't let them use city stuff. So they got to use their own stuff. And they said, okay, we'll use our own stuff. And we're still going to do what we're going to do. So the federal tools, such as their property and, of course, the warrants that they have, let the operations proceed even though they didn't have local assistance. And I'll say again, becomes it's just a messy thing that screws over the citizens. This is ultimately what it comes down to. And this is the major issue with politics in America as it currently stands, is that especially as Donald Trump has become president. Since Donald Trump has become president, this has become the major issue with politics in America. It's not Donald Trump's fault necessarily, but his presence has created, it's exacerbated this issue. It was always an issue, but it's become exacerbated since Trump came in, is that people are so strongly against him that even if he has a good idea that would help a Democrat-run entity, the Democrats will reject it just because it came from him. Any of you who's a Democrat, are you okay with that or are you not okay with that? We got any Democrats listening to this? Are you okay with that or not okay with that? Because that's really what this is. That's what's been happening the last 10 years. Any idea that Trump has that might help a Democrat city or state, the Democrats will reject it just because Donald Trump said it. Not because it's a bad idea, but they just have to go against anything Donald Trump says. Their whole thing is resist, resist, resist. You remember when Donald Trump won in 2016 and his administration began in 2017, their whole thing was resist. That was the first thing about Donald Trump was resist. Resist the existence of the president. We're going to resist and act like the president doesn't exist. That was their argument. We're going to resist Donald Trump. That didn't quite work. So then it just became, we're going to actively go against him. So the first one was to resist, like almost act like he's not the president. Do y'all remember in 2016, this is before he actually took office, after the election in November, there were people out marching. There were literally marches of people marching and saying, not my president. Y'all remember the not my president campaign against Donald Trump? That was the first wave of quote unquote resistance. Not my president. We're just going to act like the election didn't happen. So this is like a 5-year-old kid covering their eyes and acting like they don't see what just happened, or covering your ears and act like that you can't hear it. That was the first one. Let's just pretend that reality is not reality. This is the starting stage of TDS. All right, Trump derangement syndrome began with not my president. Let's just act like this didn't occur. I don't see it. I don't hear it. It just didn't happen. I'm waking up from a bad dream. He didn't win the election. That was the first one, resist. Now it's gotten into, okay, anything he says, we're going to acknowledge it now. So now we've gotten to the point that they at least acknowledge it. It did happen, but we're just going to frame it as negative. The problem with this is that the 2024 election proved that this doesn't work. The further problem with the problem is that after the 2024 election proved that this doesn't work because Donald Trump won all the swing states. Those are the states that basically determine the outcome of the election and trounced Kamala Harris. By the way, speaking of Kamala Harris, you know that Kamala Harris has been running around on her book tour, and it looks like she's selling a lot of books, by the way. Kamala Harris is selling a lot of books. Now, she sold a lot of books in bulk, of course. And that means selling books in bulk is like somebody buys 1,000 books or 20,000 books or 50,000 books, and they might be sitting in a warehouse somewhere. But she has sold a lot of books. However she sold them, she sold a lot of books. Kamala Harris has been running around saying that her loss to Donald Trump, and she's saying this as a talking point, that her loss to Donald Trump in 2024 was the closest election in this century. That's what she's been saying. Her loss to Trump was the closest election in the century, and she's saying that as a talking point, as if to say, I did so well that even though I lost, my loss was closer than everybody else who lost this century. So that my loss was better than Al Gore and John Kerry and Mitt Romney and John McCain and Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump's loss. Mine was the closest out of all of them. That's actually not true. She does not have the closest loss of this century. So she's been saying something that's not even true and going around saying it to her audiences of supporters like this is some type of talking point for her, and she's actually lying. This is not she's saying something she's lying. You can easily look at the numbers. If you look at the popular vote, this is not the closest loss. Because Hillary Clinton got more popular votes than Donald Trump, but lost the election. So that knocks out her argument of the popular vote. And then when it comes to the electoral vote, this is not the closest one because Al Gore lost to George W. Bush by like 5 votes, electoral votes. So either way you slice it, she is not the closest loser of this century, but she's going around saying this. But anyway, that's enough talking about Kamala, at least for now. So litigation and court headwinds. And actually, I was talking about something else. The problem with the problem. So after this whole thing of we're just going to make everything that Donald Trump says, we're going to frame it as negative, and we're going to use that as our talking point against him. That clearly was proven to not work anymore after 2024. After all the court cases and 34 felonies, et cetera, all those things, he still won the election. And then I thought that come January of this year, when Trump's second administration began, that the Democrats will say, okay, let's figure out a more logical way to go against them. I understand Democrats got to go against Republicans. Republicans got to go against Democrats. That's the game of politics. I understand. But at the same time, I thought they'd come up with a new strategy. They haven't come up with anything. It's been 10 months. They haven't come up with anything except we're just going to take everything Donald Trump does. We're going to frame it as negative, and we're just going to attack it. We're going to attack the straw man version of everything Donald Trump does. This is a problem because it doesn't work. They've already tried it. They've been trying this for 4 years. It didn't work. They tried it for 10 years, really. I guess you could say the Biden 2020 election, I guess. We'll just give them that. But then, even then, the whole conversation was around Trump the whole 4 years. Now Trump comes back, and they're still doing the same thing all over again. So what are they doing? I talked about this about 2 weeks ago when I gave a free consultation to the Democratic Party through this live stream that they need to come up with a actual strategy and a form. I would say they got about a year because by the 2026 midterms, Democrats are in trouble because the Republicans might win or might keep control of both sides of Congress in 2026. I thought it was guaranteed Democrats would get at least one. After the Charlie Kirk thing, I'm not so sure anymore. And Democrats haven't really changed their tone. It's been about a month since Charlie Kirk, and they haven't really changed their tone. So if you're a Democrat, y'all got issues that need to be addressed. Continuing. Litigation and court headwinds. So this is going to become a court thing. There's going to be a whole bunch of court battles. There's going to be a whole bunch of legalese that is not really doesn't really matter that much. Outcome just means everything's going to get delayed. That's all court cases do. In case any of you didn't know. When politicians fight each other in court, all it does is take the thing that was going to happen anyway and it just makes it take longer to happen. That's what it does. It's going to take longer for the same thing to occur. So a federal district court curtailed the administration's expanded, quote unquote, expedited removal for humanitarian parolees. And a judge in Chicago is weighing alleged blitz violations and Broadview filed for emergency relief over DHS fencing. Let me summarize all of that real simple. The city of Chicago and the state of Illinois use the legal system, the courts, to take DHS to court and say, y'all can't do the things that you're doing. There are judges in those areas that are probably friendly and partial towards the Democrats because they're Biden appointed judges and they're in areas that are heavily Democrat, Illinois and Chicago. And they're going to basically side with Illinois and Chicago, which basically tells DHS they can't do something for now. All the DHS is going to do is appeal and file their own court filing. It just goes to higher and higher courts until eventually, if it needs to, it'll go all the way to the Supreme Court. We all know the Supreme Court leans 6-3 conservative right now. So, in other words, all this litigation does is slow things down, does not stop it from happening, does not block it from happening, it just slows it down. Same shit's going to happen anyway. It just takes longer and it costs your tax dollars because it goes to courts and federal judges get paid by the money coming out of your pocket from your paycheck. So how do you feel about that? That's all this does. It just slows things down while you pay for it. And long story short, any of you want to understand how things work here, it slows everything down and you pay for the slowing down. So time is money. You ever heard that saying, time is money? So time is not money, really. Time is more life than it is money. But in some cases, time is money because of delayed time for DHS to do what they're going to do anyway, because Trump is the damn president. You're not going to stop him. And it's only the first year of his administration. He's got 4 years. He's not even finished through the first year yet. So they can't keep delaying this. That's the whole point. They're trying to delay something as if they got a finish line to get to. The finish line is 3.5 years away. All right, it's not going to happen. So they're delaying this and you're paying for it. Just in case any of you didn't understand what the court cases mean. That's what it means. So even as the arrests continue, legal guardrails are in flux and it could narrow the tactics. So it could somewhat somehow slow things down. Even if they were to win, quote unquote, in court and block DHS from doing what they're doing, here's the problem. The criminals are still in Chicago. Let's not forget about the actual reason why the DHS showed up in the first place. Let's not forget about that. And this is the trick that politicians play. This is the game that they play. And it's such a simple game. You would think that a 5-year-old could see through the nonsense, but most adults can't see through the nonsense because they're emotionally engaged. Here's the trick. Trump DHS says there's crime happening in Chicago, whether it's illegals or gang members, we're going to send people in. They send people in. Mayor of Chicago says we don't want Trump sending anybody into our town. Let us handle our own business. They start making it all about Trump. So DHS comes in. The city is trying to fight against Trump. So it's this battle here. They can't beat DHS, so they go to court. They get the courts to slow down DHS or even stop DHS. Let's say DHS leaves. Then they don't come back. And the mayor goes up to the people and says, look at this. I stood up to Donald Trump. This is the whole frame now. I stood up to Donald Trump, whatever that means. You're a mayor and you're a failing mayor in a failing city. You stood up to Donald Trump. But okay. I stood up to Donald Trump. We blocked Donald Trump for coming in here. We don't want Donald Trump militarizing our cities, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody gets all excited about that, while everyone forgets about the main reason that Trump noted Chicago in the first place, which is the crime. And you notice that the crime just gets swept under the rug and completely ignored, while the mayor is taking a victory lap because he, quote unquote, stood up to Donald Trump, but never addressed the actual problem, which is the crime. Now you, a resident living in Chicago who voted for this guy, what do you get? That's an open question. That's not a rhetorical question. What do you get? This is essential. I'm boiling down all this stuff about all of this boils down to this. This crime, let me go send people in. I'm not going to let you send people in. You block people from coming in. Now you claim that you got to win because you blocked them from coming in. But all you did was get back to neutral. I'll give y'all an example. There's a guy I know. I don't really know this guy, but I know of him. I would recognize him. I remember I was outside. I was about to go for a run on a Saturday morning. This is probably about a year ago. About to go for a run on a Saturday morning. This guy walks up to me and he called me by name. And he's looking at me as if he knows me. And I'm looking at him like, who is this guy? But I knew him from years ago. I knew him from like 10 years ago. And he told me his name and I recognized his name. And anyway, we're talking and I'm like, what are you doing here? Because I knew he didn't live in Miami. He was like, yeah, what was he doing? He was like backpacking, traveling around the world. And I was right in front of a hotel. So he's about to go into his hotel. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and whatever. So anyway, I'm bringing up this guy because here was this guy's, when I first met him, here was his thing. He was in the professional speaking business. And his speaking angle was, because you're in the speaking business, you usually have an angle. Like, what is your thing? What do you speak about? So when I speak, I have this frame called Work on Your Game. That's the name of my company. It's the name of my brand. It's all about taking the tools from the professional sports world, translating them over to business. That's my angle. His angle was this, that when he was a kid, I forget where he's from, like Colorado or some shit like that. He was a kid, he got on pharmaceuticals, street pharmaceuticals. I gotta be careful what words I say on TikTok. So he gets hooked on pharmaceuticals and he becomes an addict when he was a teenager. He was an addict when he was like 17. So then he gets himself cleaned up from being an addict. And after he got cleaned up from being an addict, he became a professional speaker talking to people about how he was an addict and then he wasn't an addict anymore. He got all cleaned up and I guess he turned that into some type of motivational frame. And the challenge I always had looking at that, and he's not the only one. I'm just using this guy that I'm thinking of as an example. But there are many people who fit this frame. And I'm like, wait, what's the value in what you're doing? Wait, you were normal. You were at neutral. Then you fucked yourself up. And then you fixed it and you went back to neutral. So what's the success here? What's the success story? I don't understand. And I'm telling you all that. I'm telling you all that to say this. What is Brandon Johnson's win in this situation? So there's crime in the city. Trump says we're going to come and fix the crime. You kick Trump peoples out so they can't fix the crime, and then you claim that you won. But wait a minute, we're still in the same spot. We ain't going anywhere. This is what they're doing. They ain't going anywhere. Chicago's still in the same spot. Let's say DHS gets kicked out through the court systems. Now what? What happens next? Elizabeth said the success story is that he beat the addiction. Well, how did he get addicted in the first place, Elizabeth? He did it to himself. So how you in a neutral position? You screw yourself up, then you unscrew yourself, and now that's a win. Wait a minute. You didn't do anything. You're in the same spot you were at before. You were at 0. Then you went to -10. Then you fixed it. Now you're back at 0. That's a win. That's a success. How? What'd you gain? That's not a win. Congrats to you on getting off the addiction, but what did you do? What are you going to speak to an audience of professionals about? Unless you're talking to a bunch of other addicts, you can do that. But what are you going to talk to somebody like me about? I'm not an addict. What am I going to learn from you? Mess yourself up, then unmess yourself up. And that's a win. He said he became a speaker, which requires training. No, it doesn't. I'm a professional speaker, Elizabeth. There's no training. Being a speaker is not about being good at talking. It's about having a message that resonates with an audience. So just be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, City State Pushback says, Mayor Johnson's office. They say 9 criminal detentions have surged and labels the show of force a provocation. So he's saying 9 criminal detentions have surged. So people are being detained, but they're not criminal, according to Mayor Johnson. Here's the problem. Nobody's giving data. This is the issue. And we don't even believe the data when Mayor Johnson is saying the crime's down in Chicago, but the bodies are still piling up. So Governor Pritzker, he condemned the tactics used around children and pledged accountability. So he's using kids here as a crutch. This is what the mayor and the governor are doing. They're saying, oh, well, kids are getting tied up. Kids are being, they're having their apartments run into. Well, kids of who? Are these kids in places with people who are illegal? Then the kids are, I wouldn't even say collateral damage is not the right term, but they may have to see it. But there's somebody in there who's doing a crime, then a kid may have to see that happening because that's what happens when you do crime. So they're trying to use kids as a crutch here. And Governor Pritzker has jumped in on this. And he's pledged that there will be accountability, which means absolutely nothing because the governor cannot hold the president accountable. Now, local leaders argue that the blitz undermines trust and public safety. Notice that these terms come up all the time. Anytime Donald Trump sends DHS or ICE into a city, you're going to hear these terms: trust and public safety. Trust in trust in law enforcement, period, and public safety. I don't think they're threatening public safety. I think they're helping public safety because you're getting people who are here without proper documentation out of here. That helps public safety. Even if the people without proper documentation are not committing crimes, the law says if you don't have proper documentation, you can't be here. So the public safety is knowing that I'm in a town with citizens. I'm a citizen. There are other citizens around me. That's the public safety. You don't have to be out menacing people to be threatening public safety if you're in a place without proper documentation. Can you, as an American, go hang in any other country without proper documentation and they know about it and they don't do anything? The answer is hell no. If they know you're there and you don't have proper documentation, they're going to get your ass out of there. That's the way it works. Now, reports surfaced of at least one U.S. citizen suing after being detained in a separate operation climate. So they're putting out one example of some U.S. citizen who files a lawsuit because they got detained. Well, first of all, what did you get detained for? Secondly, was it a wrongful detainment? And third, did you win your lawsuit? All of those things matter, or how the lawsuit play out. Just because you filed a lawsuit does not mean you're right. Doesn't mean whoever you sued is wrong. And a lot of people inexplicably don't understand that when it comes to lawsuits. Just because you got sued does not mean you did something wrong. And it doesn't mean that whatever you're doing is not on the up and up. It just means you got sued. Anybody can sue anybody. So rights group warned that mass actions raise due process risks. Again, listen to this language. Rights groups warn mass actions raise due process risks. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean anything. That's like saying being outside raises the risk of skin cancer because the sun is out. Okay. What point are you actually making here? Do I have sunscreen on? How much time am I spending in the sun? Are my arms covered? What am I actually doing? This doesn't mean anything. This is just mumbo jumbo language that people throw out there to try to make it seem like anything that whatever they're just trying to frame things as negative. But most people don't think. They hear that and they say, oh, yeah, that raises risks of due process. They hear due process. They're like, oh, well, people aren't getting a right to a lawyer, or people having their constitutional rights violated, et cetera, without actually asking any questions or thinking about, does that make any sense? Nobody's asking any questions. They're just accepting the talking points that they've been given. So these cases energize opponents and invite judicial scrutiny, maybe, not really. But anyway, officials blame these sanctuary politicians, and that's a fair thing to call them. This was Eric Adams for a minute before he changed his mind. Notice Mr. Adams dropped out of the mayoral race in New York. He wasn't going to win, so it's a wrap for him. Shout out to Eric Adams. It's a wrap for you. And again, New Yorkers, go up with your new mayor. What looks like is going to be your new mayor. Sanctuary politicians, and all these politicians claiming to be sanctuary states, sanctuary cities, will accept illegals. And then when those people got shipped over, they weren't called illegals. They were undocumented or people with legal status. This is during the Biden administration. Y'all remember all this? These people are coming into Texas, and the mayor Abbott is like, what the hell is this? Then all these people in the Northeast and other parts of the country that were far from the southern border, they're saying, well, we'll accept these people. We'll allow these people. We don't have a problem with people. I don't know why people are acting like they're afraid of black and brown people coming from other countries. We're a country of immigrants, et cetera, et cetera. We'll accept them. And they were all virtue signaling. They didn't think anything was actually going to happen. And this is what made it funny. None of these states and cities, Massachusetts, Maine, New York, Ohio, Chicago, none of them thought anything was actually going to happen when they were claiming, their mayors and governors were claiming that they were going to take in, they would take in immigrants. They weren't afraid, quote unquote, afraid of immigrants. Then Mayor Abbott started putting those immigrants on buses and literally sending them to these cities, and their tone changed real quick. Those of you who live in New York, y'all remember that? When all these people arrived in buses from New York, and what did Mayor Adams do? He put them in hotels. They're homeless people sitting in New York who ain't got a hotel room. See, this is what happens in politics when you start making people actually do what they talk about. Then you find out how thin the arguments of most politicians are. Most politicians is talking shit that they feel like they're never gonna have to prove until they actually got to prove it. So the sanctuary politicians, they are causing more confrontations with agents, and they point to assaults on ICE vehicles as proof of risk. So if you want to play that game, then the MAGA side can throw the same thing out. DHS can throw the same thing out. So their argument here is that when these politicians keep demonizing ICE and demonizing DHS, they're making it seem like ICE and DHS are such terrible things that are threats to civilians. Let's remember what ICE and DHS actually are. Okay, these organizations were created after 9/11 under the guise of we got to protect all Americans, and Americans being very afraid after 9/11 said okay to pretty much everything. Rubber stamped this. Congress went and created TSA, DHS, ICE, and all these other organizations that basically took away a whole lot of Americans' freedoms in exchange for security. That's what happened after 9/11. And Americans, all of you listening to this, we as a whole accepted this. So if you don't like DHS, ICE, TSA, and all these other surveillance organizations and all this stuff, now don't be mad at the government. You okayed this. We okayed this after 9/11, in case any of you don't remember. That's what happened. Yes, the Patriot Act. Exactly. Thank you for pointing that out. And Patriot Act created all this shit. Now, nowadays, the Democrat politicians are demonizing ICE and the DHS as if they're not the ones who created ICE and the DHS. Yes, George W. Bush was a Republican, but it was overwhelmingly supported in Congress to create all of this stuff. All this stuff went through pretty quickly. After 9/11, this stuff went through pretty quickly. And it was bipartisan. So remember Kamala Harris with the bipartisan border bill? Okay, this is a real bipartisan bill. The Patriot Act and everything that it created. So for Democrats to say, or to talk about DHS and ICE as if it's some terrible thing, as if they weren't part of the group that created it, is really rich. They all politicians created this. And those of you who really understand the bigger picture of politics, it really doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican. All right, none of them are to be trusted. They're all winning and benefiting and getting paid by tax dollars of Americans while not actually helping Americans. I don't care what sides you're on politically. None of them are to be trusted. Democrat nor Republican. None of them. So them bashing DHS to get Democrat voters excited to bash DHS, first of all, puts DHS in a rough place because now they go into a town and automatically you got a bunch of people mad at them. All right, first of all, do you understand what DHS is? Their job is to keep people who don't have proper documentation out of our cities. Why are you mad at them? You're an American citizen. Why are you mad at DHS? What's your problem with DHS? Put in the comments. If you have a problem with DHS or ICE, what is your problem? If you're an American citizen with proper documentation, what problem do you have with an organization whose job is to keep illegal people without proper documentation out of the country? What is your issue? It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why people are making this an issue. And anyway, it was created by both sides. So now the Democrats somehow have framed DHS and ICE as being bad things. And now ICE agents now got to cover their faces. And, you got, what's the guy's name in California? Newsom coming out with they're creating a law where you can't cover your face when you're doing certain things. Again, the Democrats are a part of this. Gavin Newsom wasn't around back then, but the Democrats are a part of this. So this framing is justifying escalation and keeping public focus on the officers rather than the actual job that they're doing. Now, people are trying to compare this to Germany, which is ridiculous. Interviews read anything about what happened in the 1930s in that country. Don't compare anything happening in America to that. That's ridiculous. That's a stretch, as a huge stretch. So much of a stretch you would pop the rubber band. And if anything like that ever got close to happening in America, it would look a lot different than what it is now. And wouldn't be anybody posting on fucking social media about it. I tell you that. So advocates argue that they're doing night raids, they're agents with masks on, and they're using heavy force. It echoes authoritarian playbooks, and it could eventually lead to arresting citizens on purpose. I say that's a hell of a stretch. We got a long way to go before we get there. That's a hell of a stretch, and that's not happening. So some say that because you didn't put out the arrestee data and you're not putting out footage, it amplifies the narrative. I say not so much. I disagree with this point. Now, what's going to come next? Maybe there'll be arrest breakdowns. I doubt it. I doubt DHS is going to put that out so that they can be attacked, because all they're going to do is get attacked. No matter what, they could arrest 9,000 people and they have them all be criminals, and they're still going to find a way to attack it. So I doubt this data is going to come out. There's going to be a whole lot of court activity. There's going to be a whole lot of legalese is basically going to delay the inevitable. Mark my words. Remember that I told you that. And yeah, people try to stop the blitz tactics, the federal, local battles, and congressional oversight. This is just going to keep doing the exact same thing. This is going to determine whether the blitz scales up, if it's curbed by courts, or if it's shift towards more targeted warrants. I mean, all of this comes down to political theater, folks. The inconvenient truth for all of you to accept is that none of this has anything to do with actually serving American citizens. Unless you're somebody like me who uses this for content, so it serves me in that way, or you're a heavy Democrat who just wants to see anything that Trump says or does push back against, and that makes you feel good, then it serves you. Or you're heavy on the MAGA side, and I don't know, how does this benefit somebody heavy on the MAGA side? Well, I guess they did do the raid, so I guess you can be happy about that. But in terms of actually helping your quality of life in any way, shape, or form, this does absolutely nothing, but you're paying for it. By the way, everything federal is paid for by your tax dollars, in case any of you didn't know. When you hear the word federal and you hear somebody has a job, that means you're paying for it. Long story short. Now, anything that's being paid for by federal dollars, you should ask yourself, all right, how is this helping me? How is this serving me? I don't mean serving you like directly, like it has to put money in your pocket, but what is this doing for me? And did I vote for this? Did I choose this? Do I like this? Do I want this? And who's responsible for this? And how did they get in charge? You should ask yourself all these questions, because these are our employees. Anybody who's federal is our employees. Congress are our employees. The governor and the mayor where you live, they are your employee. The president is your employee. All right, these people work for us. And it's our money that they're using to do what they're doing. Even when they print money, that devalues the money that you have. So it's affecting you one way or another, directly or indirectly, is affecting you. You should be asking yourself these more serious questions than asking yourself, or am I on Team Democrat or Team Republican? Which is, again, that's the show that keeps everybody distracted. That's not the real issue. Anyway, let's get into the comments here. Let's see what we got over on Instagram. Then we'll come to TikTok. Will Avila said they don't do that because they feel to have the First Amendment so they can protest. Nothing wrong with protesting, but I wouldn't protest in a way that I am antagonizing the officers. Because, again, why would you get your ass kicked on purpose? X-Rob said, I toured Chicago last year. It was amazing. Well, I'm sure it was. Chicago's a huge city. I'm sure there are parts of Chicago where there's never anything crazy happening, but there's also parts of Chicago where it is also always crazy stuff happening. They bring the cameras to certain places for certain reasons. Yes.
This urchin is not staying together anymore.
Oh, your toy broke? You want me to fix it?
It still keeps rolling. The wheel keeps falling off. But yes.
It looks like it fell up. Let me see if I can fix it. So Will Avila said, what I don't understand is why our federal judges and even the Supreme Court lean left or right. All judges should be unbiased, just interpret the laws with no leaning left or right. Well, it's a good question, Will Avila, so let me explain to you the answer. First of all, the judges don't come out and say that they lean left or right. No judge says that. We say it when we're talking about them, because judges tend to have a conservative or liberal leaning based on the way that they interpret the law. What y'all have to understand is that the reason why we have judges in courts instead of just having ChatGPT decide court cases, because ChatGPT can read the Constitution and it can interpret things in black and white. The thing about the law, and the reason we have judges and the reason we have lawyers in court cases, is because of the interpretation of the law, not the letter of the law. So the letter of the law says this. If that's all it is, then every court case can be decided in 2 seconds. And AI could decide 1,000 court cases in about 2 minutes. The reason why court cases take as long as they do, and there's all this back and forth, is because the judges get to look at the law and they get to look at the lawyer's argument of, hey, here's the law. One lawyer says, I want to interpret the law this way. The other lawyer says, I want to interpret the law that way. Judges do the same thing. Some judges will interpret the law and they will interpret it in a more conservative fashion, whereas other judges will look at the exact same law, the exact same language. They will interpret it in a more liberal fashion. So it's not so much about the letter of the law. It's about how does a judge want to interpret what the law says. So that's what it comes down to. I got to take the mic off here on IG because my battery is dying. So y'all can still hear me, but it's not going to be as clear as it was. So the whole reason is because none of the judges call themselves liberal or conservative. They just interpret the law in a more liberal way or a more conservative way. And as they build a track record, then people call them liberal or conservative. But it's not like Clarence Thomas comes out and says, hey, I'm a conservative judge. Maybe he does, but it's not like he says, all right, well, I'm a conservative judge, so anything that comes up on this side, I'm going to go this way. But often that's how it ends up, because the only way a case even ends up at the Supreme Court is because the lower courts couldn't get it solved in a way that was satisfactory. It appeals all the way up. The Supreme Court gets to decide if they want to take a case or not. So I'm using the Supreme Court as an example. And it's because of the interpretations of the law keep going back and forth. So they're the ultimate court. They make the final decision, and whatever they decide, that becomes the precedent that all other courts end up following. So that's the reason why it works that way. So the judges don't actually lean left or right. They technically they don't. They do, but they don't, if that makes sense. And you say they should interpret the laws with no leaning. Well, that's the issue. If it was all about just interpreting the law black and white, then we get, again, ChatGPT can replace all the judges. But the interpretation is what matters. That's the whole point. Jagabeezy said, I hear you talk about Trump more than God. Well, who said that? Is God a current event? my live stream is about current events. Donald Trump is the most active current event that we have. So if you got a current event about God that us to talk about, suggest it. Anyway, let's get over to the comments over on TikTok. And I'm reading from the oldest to the newest, ladies and gentlemen. So if I didn't read your comment as soon as you posted it, it's not because I'm ignoring your comment. Assyrian says Chicago politics makes money off jails. They don't want peace. Well, everybody makes money off jails. Patty O said, let Trump handle the nonsense in every plague city. About time for a deep cleaning for the people. Well, the problem is he can't do that. The executive branch does not have the power to go into cities. The cities still have jurisdiction. Dean Dangerous said, host just said beating addiction isn't the win. Some of the dumbest shit ever said.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
All right, let's get the soundboard fired up.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay.
It depends on how you got addicted, Dean Dangerous. How'd you get addicted? If you were at normal, then you got addicted to something, and then you got off it. I don't consider that something that you can build a career off of talking to people who have not done it. I want to make sure everybody's clear on what I said, because that's what I said. I said, what are you going to say to an audience of people like me who have never been addicted? I don't want to hear what you have to say. You were at neutral. You got addicted. You got off your addiction. Congratulations. Go talk to a bunch of addicts about how they can beat their addiction. That's your audience. But you can't talk to somebody like me because what'd you do? You didn't do anything. That's what I said. So please don't misinterpret my point or reframe it into something that I didn't say.
Strawberry cheesecake.
Lava said he did a 360. Yes, he did. He did a 360. He spun around in a complete circle and then said that he won. That's nothing. And I'm using that as an example. I was really just framing the politics in Chicago. It wasn't about professional speaking. But anyway, Missy said you need to look to God. On what grounds? What are you talking about? 3 Frames said opinion on Israel. What about him? We talked about that. Dean said you're reading ChatGPT. No, I'm not. Dear Strauss, thanks for the follow. Marty, thanks for the follow. Elizabeth said you have a narcissist vibe and you think you are right 100%. Have a good day. Well, thank you for wishing me to have a good day. I will take that. Polly, thanks for the follow. Darla said Illinois has always been corrupt. How many governors have gone to prison? Okay, fair enough. Donna, thanks for the follow. June Not Indigo said even if they were doing that, do what? They voted to embed illegals in their neighborhoods. Well, they voted for the politicians. The politicians decided to do it. But once you vote for the politician, they get to do whatever they want. I don't think the people voted to do it directly. I get what you're saying. Indirectly, they did. Vicky Skinner said, I left Dems when I woke their party of war and corporate greed. Okay. Chris Simmons said they believe not all people who commit crimes are criminals, so he believes non-criminals are detained. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. If you commit a crime, you're a criminal. That's by definition. Mary Jasper says, why can't we just fight crime? Who cares who it is that helps? Make it make sense. Well, Mary, this is the reason why politics is politics in America, because it's become this two-sided thing where the main argument is let's make sure we oppose the other side rather than actually serving the people. This is the reason why I have emphasized and maintained that the main person that you should be focusing on is yourself, not a politician. Even if you are a Republican or a Democrat or you're MAGA or you're anti-Trump, main person you need to be focusing on is yourself, because they are not really in the game to help you as much as they're in the game to help themselves, because that's the way politics has devolved in America to become a career. Politics was not designed by the founding fathers to be a full-time job. It was designed to be something that you did as a volunteer, the same way you might volunteer to help out in the Parent Teachers Association at your kid's school or to coach your kid's local soccer team. That you gave a little bit of time here and there, but then you went back to your regular life and did your regular stuff. And because you were a regular person operating amongst the people, you understood what the people needed. Then what it's become, let's keep getting the likes up over here on TikTok, please. Get the likes up, let's get to 100,000. What it's become is that it's a full-time job. And when you have something that's a full-time job, then you're going to do what is ever is necessary to keep the full-time job, because you get the pay, you get the access, you get the relationships, you get the power that comes with that. Now they're going to emphasize, let me make sure I do something that helps me keep my job rather than prioritizing helping the people. And that's the problem with politics in America. If it was just about helping the people, well, then we wouldn't have these problems. You wouldn't have these problems at all, because let's say somebody in Congress, they're going to make a decision that basically serves the people because they have no other priorities. But if you're trying to keep your job in Congress, because the best job you've ever had when it comes to access, power, money, etc., then of course you're going to do something that protects your job. Maybe you might prioritize that over helping the people. And you might have to choose between the two at some points. And this is how politics became politics in America. And this is why none of these people are to be trusted. Realtor Shelley, thanks for the follow. Juno said, even if they were doing that, so what? They voted to embed illegals in their neighborhoods. Fair enough. Lost my spot in the comments here. Where was I? Steffi said, deportation numbers are still low. Just a lot of media around it. Well, what do you mean by low? Joey Z said the law also affords due process. Yes, it does. Now, the question is, what kind of due process is everybody getting? Who's not getting something? We don't know. That's the problem. We don't have the data. We don't know who's getting what. So it's all just a matter of who can win the argument and do a better job of framing it on social media if people care about that. But the bottom line is, it really doesn't matter what gets said on social media. It's still, what's going to happen is still going to happen. Emery said they're taking citizens and children. No, they're not. DZ Ride said real ones remember Dre all day. Well, it's still Dre all day. I still got DreAllDay.com. Still exists. So I appreciate it. Susan Atkinson, thanks for the follow. Marty said, which is why when you travel to another country, you must go through customs before being allowed in. Yes, even when you leave another country and come back to America, you got to go through customs. Karina said, I've seen videos from 22 and 23 at those migrant shelters. They trashed the areas up. Well, of course they did. No, why would they take care of it? Michael Lynn said, and they're using that one story to act like it's happening to a bunch of Americans. Yeah, exactly. Dean Dangerous said, you said no citizens were arrested 2 minutes ago. No, I didn't. I said that there was a story of a citizen who said they were detained and they sued the government because of it. Emery said ISIS provoking the people to create an issue so they can declare martial law. Well, that's what the Democrats are saying. I don't think that's going to happen, Emery. It sounds good. It's a juicy plot line, but I don't think that's going to happen. But we'll see. If it happens, we'll probably talk about it. Karina said they're also using unrelated videos from different events and causing hysteria. Yes, it's all part of the game. I understand they may use videos that have nothing to do with the current situation. They use that as a way of gaining public support in order to keep doing what they're doing. But the Democrats do the same thing. So this is the political game, folks. When you get into politics, you can see this is what they all do. That man said nothing beats those buses to Martha's Vineyard, LMAO. Yeah, exactly. Boats and hose storage said the state of Chicago. Tish, good morning. Classic P said nobody had a problem when Obama was deporting. In fact, 2014, 75% of people were removed. No due process. Okay, I don't know that to be true, but let's just say that was the case. Nobody cared. You're correct that nobody cared about it. Stefar says, no, boats in house storage. Said, and Uncle Tom, really? Okay.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
They got to come with something better than that. Emery said they're attacking peaceful people. What makes a person peaceful? And how do you know? Carlos said, I feel so bad for Maine. So innocent, they don't know what they're in for. Well, it already happened. Emery said we had a right to peaceful protests. Yes, you do. I wouldn't antagonize. If you're antagonizing somebody, you're not being peaceful. So you're saying something different than what I said. Duncan said, assault on Ice Cube's bus was crazy. Well, the thing is, somebody said the community notes on that assault on the bus was that was a different thing that happened at a different time. Someone reframed it as if it was people assaulting the bus thinking that it was ice, but it actually wasn't ice. So I think you might have got fooled on that one. I want Cookie said GM. What does that mean? UGMFU. I don't know what that means. Terrence Pipe said, who voted for the Patriot Act? We did. We voted for Congress. They chose the Patriot Act. That's how it works. You vote for the politicians. Once they get in the office, they do what they want to do. And whatever they do, we voted for it indirectly because we chose the politicians. That man said Obama deported way more people. We just didn't have social media like we do now. And people just didn't care. People weren't making a big issue out of it. Terrence said, we the people or a select few? If you're talking about voting, then all of us, even if you didn't vote. By not voting, you still voted. You chose to not vote, you voted. So whoever got chosen, you still chose them, even if you didn't participate in the process. That's the way it works. JC Fizzy said, nice to hear someone educated speaking the facts. Well, thank you. Terrence said, who voted for the Patriot Act? Politicians or people? I already addressed that. Tina said 100%. Thank you. Emery said, how do you not see that he's trying to invoke martial law? Cities don't need the military. WTF. Well, it depends on what you mean by need. You may not need something, but you still want it. I mean, you don't need a smartphone, but you have one. You don't need a TikTok account, but here you are. So just because you don't need something doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And if he's trying to invoke martial law, well, okay, let's see it happen first. Just because you keep claiming it does not mean that that's what he's trying to do. You say that someone's trying to do something, that means you can read their mind. Last I checked, there's not a human on the planet able to read the mind of another person. So if you can do that, my question, Emery, is why are you wasting your talent talking about Donald Trump?
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Melik said, welcome to the purple movement. What is that? Blue and red combined? Doc Turk, thanks for the follow. Emery said, why is the military being used against citizens? That's not happening. False frame, non sequitur.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay.
It's actually a straw man.
Strawberry cheesecake.
The straw man, that sound y'all just heard. Straw man is when someone takes a position or a point or an argument and they try to make it sound different than what it actually is, and then they argue against the thing that doesn't even exist. That's called the straw man. So when y'all hear that,
strawberry cheesecake,
that's when somebody has said something like that. Christy Curiel, thanks for the follow. James, good morning. Rose D said, because they are also targeting us citizens. They're targeting citizens? How? How are they targeting citizens? So a bunch of you clearly have been influenced by the messaging of the Democratic Party. That's one thing Democrats are good at. How are they targeting you? And why didn't they get you yet? Because if they were targeting you, you wouldn't be on TikTok leaving comments right now. So why have they not gotten you yet? Our military is pretty good. So if we're militarizing the cities, that means we're using the military and they're targeting citizens. Why haven't they gotten you yet? Are you James Bond? They can't catch you? Why have they not gotten you? Mel said, because we have the right to travel freely in the United States, constitutional right. I don't know what you're responding to, but okay. Tara said, the Dems forced us to wear masks. Oh, well. No, that was everybody. Everybody went along with that for a little while. Everybody meaning politicians. D said, people with visas overstay. My sister married one. Well, now I guess they don't need a visa anymore now that your sister got married to him, right? Kai, good morning. Cities Illa said, Trump calls Democrats the plague. Okay, well, what do they call him? I mean, you want to play the name calling game? Marcia said, I don't think so. I think we will always fight authoritarianism. Well, who said that this is authoritarianism? I don't think this is authoritarianism. So there's nothing to fight. So you say we will always fight, meaning Americans. You got an American flag in your name. There is no authoritarianism. So if that's all you're fighting, there is nothing to fight.
Strawberry cheesecake.
And Emery says totalitarianism. So totalitarian government. There's no totalitarianism. If there was totalitarianism, guess what wouldn't be happening? We wouldn't be having this conversation because Trump would just do whatever he wants to do and there'd be no pushback. There'd be no arguing about from Pritzker, nothing from Brandon Johnson. There'd be no court cases, because if it was totalitarian, then there is no pushback. There is no system of checks and balances. So the fact that we're even having this conversation proves that there are checks and balances. So it can't be authoritarian and it can't be totalitarian. So both of you are making straw man arguments.
Strawberry cheesecake.
Plausible said, funny that you think it takes so long. Good luck to you. So just the fact that I don't even know what you're responding to, but you said funny. So that's the appeal to ridicule.
Oh, I like your funny words, Magic Man.
And then you are proposing what you think that I think that makes it a straw man.
Strawberry cheesecake.
And good luck to you. There's a little bit of sarcasm in there, but that's not quite enough to get the triple-double award. So you got the double-double award. Who gets the double-double? That's the Angel Reese award. You got double-double. Karina said it's all theater. Yes. Xavier said every other than Native Americans is immigrants. No, you're a citizen. You're a citizen of America. You're a citizen. So if you came here from Brazil and you got citizenship, you're not an immigrant. You're a citizen. There's levels to this. You were an immigrant. Now you're a citizen. America is a country of citizens, not a country of immigrants. Jay Rocker said that goes for Trump too. Nothing to do with helping American citizens. Well, directionally, he says things that look like he's trying to help American citizens. He does it through targeting his political opponents, and they do the same thing going back and forth. But as I said, all politicians are liars. The difference with Trump is that he's not a career politician. So that makes him a little bit different. It's one of the reasons why he gets so much pushback from politicians, because he's not a career politician. He doesn't need to play that game, because the frame that I just gave 15 minutes ago is that career politicians in America need to keep their jobs. They got to prioritize keeping their jobs over every other consideration, whereas Donald Trump does not have that issue because his career is not being a politician. So, Jay Rocker, you may be somewhat pointing in the right direction, but it doesn't quite apply to Trump the same way it applies to other politicians for that reason alone. I've explained this before. Tara said, not if you don't pay taxes. I get it. Well, you pay taxes when you buy stuff too. And they'll find a way to get money from you one way or another. Karina said, people still don't know legal versus illegals. That's insane. I think people know. They just pretend to not know. Huckleberry 88, thank you. Chris Simmons, thanks for the follow. Emery said, people being detained with green cards, citizens being detained, children separated. You can't separate a child. What do you mean? Like taking them apart at the limbs? What do you mean by children separated? And Emery, you had to prove that these things are happening. You just saying it doesn't make it true. J.C. Fizzy said, why are people still not understanding the difference between illegal and legal? Well, so a couple of you are saying this. I think people do understand the difference. I think people just want to muddy up the waters so that they can continue to attack Trump and anything associated with him. Tara said, let's take all our money out of the banks. Well, they're designed to not let you do that. It's made so you can't do it. What are you going to do with the money? Trisha, good morning. Linda B, good morning. Melly said, government is so weird because everyone has their own contradiction opinion to everyone else. Well, it's designed that way. So it's actually working perfectly. Huckleberry says, seen some people online saying Chicago and Portland have ICE going against police and video. Maybe. It depends. Honeybug, thanks for the follow. Quail Ridge. Oh, no, it wasn't to me. And Natty Lover, thanks for the follow. Tony Ford, thanks for the follow. Kurt said they probably should be replaced. Who are you talking about? JC said, yeah, he's not a pastor. Yeah, I'm not a pastor. Yali, thanks for the follow. Marty said, everyone's so worried about being Republican or Democrat, we forgot how to be decent human beings. Okay, fair enough. Nana said the soundboard is going to be on fire. A little bit. Karina said that Christian would be making that comment if you were bashing Trump. Probably. But maybe. I don't know. I don't know who that was. Freedom Rider said, I know that you answer our comments towards the end. Yes, well, I do the material, then I get to the comments. So we got about 20-ish minutes more of comments. Miss B said, even if the American people are under attack by crime and the local mayor won't do nothing. Yes, that's the issue. That's the reason why Trump paid attention in the first place. Jasmine Carter, thanks for the share. Let's get the likes up, folks. We're at 91,000. Get to 100. Nash said, people just want to feel safe. The answer isn't putting military on the streets. That's crazy. Not really. Not really. When you say putting military on the streets is crazy, it gives people an image, because when we think military, I think reasonable person, when they think military, we think of what we see when our troops are in other countries and there's actually a war going on. But the military can be used for other things. And people want to not only feel safe, but actually be safe. And that means you got to get rid of the criminals. You say the answer isn't putting military on the streets. Well, that's a false binary.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy. Okay.
People feel safe usually when the cops are doing their jobs. But if the cops are failing to do their jobs, what other options do you have? And the other option that the president has is I can send in military, because that's the only thing the president controls. The president doesn't control the local police. So the only thing the president can do is send in military. Otherwise, the president does nothing. So the president looked at his options and said, this is what I can do to help. Otherwise, I could do nothing and let things keep going the way that they're going. So what you're throwing out there, Nash, is a false binary. And considering the situation, what you're arguing here is not even the situation at hand. Leah, thanks for the lightning bolts. Miss Kim Bakes, thanks for the pumpkin pie. Cocoa Butter said, you're a breath of fresh air. Common sense isn't that common anymore. Well, thank you. Shannon Burt said, Trump needs to send ICE into Dearborn, Michigan. We are in big trouble. Well, maybe. You got to get some, he got to have a reason. Either an okay from the governor. I don't think that's going to happen. Or he has to have some federal reason to do it. So one of the two has to occur. So in Memphis, for example, he's going in because the governor of Tennessee is Republican. That governor, I believe the governor is Republican, but the governor either way welcomed Trump in. So now he can send people into Memphis. So the governor, or it has to be a federal reason, a direct federal reason. Freedom Rider says, a former alcoholic, I consider it a win for those who beat the addiction. I understand your stance. Yes, it's fine for them that you were addicted, you got unaddicted. Congratulations. What I'm saying is, if you're in the business that I'm in as a speaker, for example, what are you going to say to somebody who's not an addict? You don't have anything to offer to that person. I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying this guy who I use as an example. Nash said, I don't live in the city, couldn't pay me to, so I don't really have an opinion. Okay, fair enough. JJ Gamble said, if my city was having extreme crime violence, I would definitely want military. Well, yeah, if the cops aren't doing it, somebody got to do something. Echo said, 200,000% correct. Thank you. Karina said, in Memphis, people couldn't even get gas without getting mugged. They're happy. Yeah, I've heard that they're sending them in there. Camulus said, thoughts on cities, police forces refusing to assist ICE when they come under fire. We talked about that about 25 minutes ago. And they have a right to if they don't want to. If they get told by the mayor, don't help them, then what do you want to do? You got to do your job. And the mayor says stand down, you stand down. Good morning. Lost my spot in the comments. All right, we almost got caught up here. So we got about 20 more minutes of comments, folks. Morning Pound Cake 426. JC Fizzy said, I can't believe so many people after all this happens still don't get it. I think people do get it. They just decide not to get it because Trump clowns people's reason. Karina said they also had plenty of time to self-deport. Any level of due process is out the window. Yeah, well, they do get due process. Due process is you got arrested, you get on the plane, you get out of here. That's the due process. Cassie's version said ICE doesn't have the time or capacity for people who aren't committing crimes. I would agree. Doesn't mean they can't get a false positive every now and then, but people are acting like they're doing it on purpose. That's the frame that people are trying to use. Betty, thanks for the follow. Hale said, I notice a lot of people have distorted the definition of illegal. I agree with that. Hale said, immigrant and immigrants. What does that mean? Marsha said, my thing is, I bet some of the undocumented immigrants work for companies that profited. Of course they did. Well, if you work for a company, the company's profiting off your existence by definition, because the company is never going to give you more money than they're making off of your efforts. So anytime you have a job, the job is making more money from you than you're making from the job. That's a guarantee. Doesn't matter how you get paid or what you do for a living. Jay Rocker said, have you seen some of the videos of how ICE is detaining some of these people? Yeah, well, videos on social media don't tell the whole story. I mean, think back to the George Floyd situation. Just because you see a video doesn't mean that tells you the story. That means it tells you a piece, and it tells you the piece that the person who posted the video wants you to see. That doesn't prove anything. Claudia said, sound bites are hilarious. Well, thank you. Miss Kim Bake said, I enjoy mornings listening to you. Thank you. You're welcome. Cool V22 said Ice Cube's bus caught a flat tire. Yeah, I saw the community notes on it was that it was just some random thing that happened, and it wasn't even recently. And then people used that video to say oh, people attacked that bus because they thought it was ICE or the DHS when that actually wasn't the situation. So a lot of people got fooled. James Eaton said, constitutionally, the president is in charge of who can and cannot enter the country. Yes, which is why Trump signed a bunch of executive orders to actually secure the border and enforce the laws. And all of a sudden, we got fewer people coming into the country. Magic formula. Linda B, thanks for the follow. JC said, that's why it's important to do your research before you vote. Well, most people don't research, JC. We know nobody's going to research before they vote. People go off of who has the best messaging. That's why they do all this. The reason why politicians are on social media and CNN and posting on Instagram is because they understand that most people are not going to do research. They're going to go off of what they feel, and what they feel is based on what they see. So you got to show people what they want to see. Coach B said, Hood morning from West Virginia. Good morning. Jackie B said, not true. That's how it's supposed to work. What are you referring to? Cool V said, no vote was a vote for Devil Trump. I don't know about that. What if you didn't vote and Kamala won? Would you be saying that about Kamala? World's greatest dad said you could pay for cops. Well, that's federal versus local. The city of Chicago will have to come up with the money. I don't think the city of Chicago has enough money to pay for as many cops as they actually need. And that's the issue. Traditional, good morning. Good to see you. We're at 100,000 already. Gwen, good morning. Barbie 007, good morning. Up in Smoke and Gwen, thanks for the follow. MP Wonderful said, go Trump. Marcia said, people don't care. Issue is because Obama was graceful in delivering deportation matters. Yes, I agree with that. Obama just did his so smoothly and gracefully that it didn't never seem like he was doing anything that could be bad. Trump does his in a more brash and direct way, so people can more easily interpret what he's doing as bad just because of his style, just because of communication style. But him and Obama are doing a lot of things the same. JC, we got a lot of straw men around. Yeah, we do. Linda B, thanks for the lightning bolts. MP Wonderful, thanks for the follow. DM said, Democrats are fear-mongering. Well, the Republicans do it too. I mean, Donald Trump used fear a lot to win his elections. We can't. Fear sells, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all got to understand that. If you want to move people to action, on some level, you may need to get them afraid of a future without taking action. That's the way you can move. A lot of human beings are too lazy to do things just on their own fault volition. So you got to give them a reason, and fear is a good reason to move people to do something. Coach B asked me about something. I don't even know what you're talking about. So no, I can't tell you what that is. Cool 22 said Trump said drink bleach. No, he didn't. All right, we got it. That was like 5 years ago. You can't still be repeating that lie.
Have some more chicken. Have some more pie. It doesn't matter if it's boiled or fried.
Busy Lady said Trump still hasn't reached Obama's deportation numbers. That's true. Wise Guy said, have you ever read all the Insurrection Acts scenarios? No, why would I? Let's see. Haley Pittman, thanks for the follow. Traditional said Trump is a master of what he does. Yes, he is. Obama was a master too. That's why they both won 2 elections. Be true to who you are. Thanks for the follow. Annie AFF said Dems need to give Trump a chance. At least we gave it to Obama and Biden. Well, they really don't, because he has control of Congress right now, and if they win in 2026, he'll have control of it again. Echo said loving all the strawberry tea, and they're not going to give him a chance. And that's the other reason. That's not going to happen. YFM Josh said, do you think Trump is trying to implement an authoritarian rule? No. And that's what the Democrats are trying to get people to think he's trying to do, but he can't do it. System of checks and balances doesn't allow it. He couldn't do it even if he tried. Brooke Berkemer, thanks for the follow. Leah said, love the tie. Thank you. Wise Guy said, Title 10 Insurrection Act allows Trump to protect federal building. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. I don't know if you came in late. I've talked about that like 5 times over the last 3 weeks. We know that you can protect the federal building. That's the reason DHS is in Chicago in the first place, because the mayor and the governor would not allow them in otherwise. Leah, thank you for the Go Popular. Times 100. Thank you, Leah. James Eaton, thank you for the heart. Miss B said, when your local government is doing their job and people want protection, it's time for I didn't get the rest of your comment. But yes, but that's only if they allow it, and or the federal government has to come up with a reasonable reason why they're coming in. So even if Trump thought the crime in Chicago was crazy, if he didn't have a federal excuse to send troops in, he couldn't do it. And that's the system of checks and balances, which again leaves citizens of a city up to, you got to look at the person you elected, the local person. Rise Lord, thanks for the follow. Courtney said Governor Lee is a Republican. Okay, I thought he was Republican. Just checking. Pound Cake, thanks for the follow. James Eaton, thanks for the go popular. You just said, what are your thoughts on Muslims taking over the cities? What cities? Miss Frosty said, I can't stand Governor Greg Abbott. That's Texas, right? Well, Texas voted for him. So you either got to vote for somebody else or move out of Texas. I think there's only options you got. Tina MC said, do you think Abbott should have gotten involved by sending 400 troops to Chicago? Abbott sent 400 troops to Chicago? I don't know if that even happened. And that's not the topic, so I can't really address that. Marky Man said, how many shootings in Chicago are people taking the law into their own hands? Well, it's not the law, Marky Man. I don't think they're taking the law into their own hands. I think it's people just doing what they want to do. And the shooting just happens to be what they want to do. Rose Ann said, thanks for clearing a lot of things up. Thank you. Leah, thank you for the lightning bolts again. Level 15 member Leah, congratulations. Rod says, have you ever thought about doing Turning Point USA? Well, doing what with Turning Point USA? You mean like speaking at their event or something like that? That's the kind of thing you would have to get invited to. They would have to call me. I'm not calling them. I don't need Turning Point USA. But shout out to them. I don't need them. They would have to call me, though. Miss Frosty said, Lord help us. Big Lou, New Jersey, good morning, said, what's your feeling about Chicago mayor? My feeling is the people of Chicago voted for him, so you get what you voted for. That's my feeling. I think he's a politician playing political games, and the citizens are getting screwed in the process. That's what I think. Pamela Robbins, Kelbo Williams, and Gary, thanks for the follow. Shani JC said the UK and France should be an astounding example to us. Well, most people don't pay attention to that stuff. Gangster Granny said, listening to you is making me smarter. Well, thank you. Miss Frosty, thanks for the repost. YFM Josh, Mimi Voorhees, Shani, thanks for the follows. Irish Mob, good morning. Nikki, thanks for the follow. Freedom Rider said, I had to understand that Chicago or Illinois is receiving $800 for crime prevention. $800 from who? Jay Rocket said, that's a great point about difference in style between Trump and Obama. Yes, they're very similar. Politicians are not that much different from each other. They try to make it seem like they're very different, but they're really not. Marianne Luciani said, people that barricaded ICE and attacked them, Trump needs to send in the tanks and bulldoze the cars. Marianne, that's a little bit extra. I think that's going a little bit too far. Kuya said, why do people feel that a no vote is a vote for Democrats? Well, people say that the no vote is a vote for whoever they don't like, is what people say. I heard people say it on both sides. That if you don't vote, you're voting for Trump. And if you don't vote, you're voting for whoever the Democrat is they don't like. If you don't vote, you're voting for whoever won. That's who you're voting for. By not voting or voting, you're voting for whoever won. Everybody who is a citizen of the United States of America, whoever won, you voted for. Every one of you listen to this. The last election in 2024, if you voted for Trump, you voted for Trump. If you voted for Kamala, you voted for Trump. And if you didn't vote, you voted for Trump. Why? Because Trump won. And our voting process is a democratic process, free and fair election, and majority rules electorally. And the majority electoral win went to Donald Trump, which means every single citizen voted for Donald Trump. Even if you voted for Kamala, you voted for Trump. Why? Because you participated in the process by being a citizen. By being an American citizen, you are participating. If you did nothing, you participated by doing nothing. If you did something, you participated by doing something. No matter who you voted for, majority said Trump. So Trump is who everybody voted for. That's why Trump is the president for everybody, whether you like him or not. Joey said, have you seen people misconstruing the video of the dad playing cops and robbers with his kid? I have not. I don't look at random videos on social media. So you're asking the wrong person that kind of question. Claudia Amanza, congrats on the gifter level. Mall Candy, thanks for the follow. JC, thanks for the follow. Rise Lord, thanks for the repost. Lynn, thanks for the follow. Nene said, Dearborn. Yeah, I've heard people talking about it. And Instagram said, I'm nearing the limit of recorded music that can be shared in a live video. To record your video being stopped and removed, please don't share any more recorded music during your broadcast. If videos are moved, it can't be saved, shared, or replayed. This is not music, Instagram. It's the sound of people clapping. What the hell are you talking about? Instagram's acting up today. But anyway, I'm going to use the soundboard as much as I need. If I need to get the replay from a different app, I'll get it from somewhere else. Marsha said, MAGA thinks you're a MAGA. Well, I'm not in the business of controlling what other people think. Kuya Ben Yashara, thanks for the gifts. Lightning Bolt Live, what's up, TikTok, GG, and Goats. Oh, 800 million from who? From the federal government? I didn't know about that. Roseanne said, do you think Republicans will hold Congress next year? I think if the election was this year, they would win. I think they would win both sides if the election was right now after the Charlie Kirk thing. Now, it's going to be a whole year, though. Things could happen. So they have a chance to kind of get their momentum back. They had momentum till Charlie Kirk. The response to Charlie Kirk's death by a lot of Democrats hurt them. I think would hurt them at the ballot box. Luckily, there's no election this year, no congressional election. But next year, if the Republicans can remind voters of how a lot of Democrats responded to Charlie Kirk this year, that's going to hurt them at the ballot box. And I think it's going to hurt them. So right now, I can't say. Before Charlie Kirk, about a month ago, I said Democrats are probably going to win at least one side of Congress in 26. I could pretty much guarantee it. But now, I don't think so. I can't say that right now. They can still win, but I don't think they're going to win both. And I'm even questioning whether they can win one. That's where I see the Democrats right now. I'm not sure they can win even one side. So we're at 108,000 likes. Great. Thank you, Courtney, for the lightning bolts. I see you. Retired again. Thanks for the share. YFM said, you clearly aren't MAGA, nor are you the opposite. You're a critical thinker and intellectual, in my opinion. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Yali said they need to win something for checks and balances. Not really, because even though right now Trump runs the White House and Republicans control both sides of Congress, there's still checks and balances. They still can't get things. Still can't just do anything. Because right now, aren't we in the midst of a government shutdown? Now, why is there a government shutdown, even though the Republicans control everything? Because they still need Democratic support. There's a government shutdown, even though the Democrats control nothing, because the Democrats still have some say. So even though they don't control any branch right now, they still can affect how things go. Because unless you get some Democrats to go along with some things the Republicans want to do, the Republicans can't just do whatever they want to do. So the fact that we have a shutdown right now is exact proof that you can't just do anything, even though you control all the houses. Marsha said, I agree. Thank you. Because I can say, I don't care what side. I just want the dang truth. So many layers to everything. Well, because I can, the reality is these days actually, this has always been a reality. And always been a reality that you can't get the truth from the politicians because their full-time job is, keeping their jobs and controlling spin. So they can't give you the truth. It used to be until about 15 years ago that you could get the truth from watching TV, the news, and reading newspapers. They would tell you the truth. They would tell you objectively what was happening. You had journalists who would break down what happened and explain to you why it happened. Then what happened over the last 15 years is social media became a thing, and a bunch of TV platforms and people who worked at newspapers and people who were journalists, they got on social media. Their jobs were based on how popular they were on social media. And unfortunately, social media rewards sensationalism. It rewards the quick hit. It rewards the thing that goes viral. The reality is the truth is rarely that exciting. The truth is not sexy. The truth is usually pretty boring when you know the whole truth. Now, if you take pieces of the truth and give it to people, that's exciting. That goes viral. That's sensational. The problem happened is when the media companies, traditional media companies, realize, okay, a bunch of people are going to social media, so we got to compete on social media. So they start sending their journalists and reporters to social media. The journalists and reporters said the only way we can win on social media is by being sensational. So they tried to be sensational and they abandoned the objectivity. They abandoned the truth to be sensational. Now nobody's going after the truth because the truth is boring and not sexy, but the headlines are sexy. So now everybody's going after the headlines, but the headline is not the truth. So now the truth is out there floating by on the ether, but there's nobody actually trying to get it. And when somebody does try to get to the truth, people go against them. People go and attack them for trying to get to the truth, or people just ignore you because, again, the truth is not sexy. So everybody's paying attention to the sexy thing, but nobody's paying attention to the reality, which is the actual truth. So what's happening these days, who was it that said that? Because I can. To get the truth these days, you got to do more work than you used to have to do. In 2010, you didn't have to do a lot of work to get to the truth. You could read a newspaper or listen to a journalist and they would tell you. Nowadays, that same newspaper, that same journalist is not in the truth business anymore. They're in the clicks business because clicks drive ad revenue, and ad revenue is how these people get paid. As I told you, in politics, politicians are going to emphasize what's going to help me keep my job, not what's going to serve the people, because serving the people might cost you your job. And if they lose their job, now they still got bills. They're still humans just like you. They got to pay for food, clothing, shelter. A person who works in the media, they got to keep their job. They got bills too. They got kids too. They got to pay for food, clothing, shelter. So if what keeps my job, let's say I'm a journalist and my job was to tell you the truth, and I just like giving you the truth, the truth, the truth. That's what I love to do. And now I realize that if I keep giving you the truth, I'm going to lose to TikTok and Instagram and podcasters and Joe Rogan and independent media and whatever's going viral on Instagram. If I know that I'm going to lose by doing that, and I know that my boss is looking at me like, yo, you're not getting enough clicks, therefore we're going to cut your salary in half or you're going to get fired. And I'm like, well, how am I going to pay my bills if my salary gets cut or I get fired? I guess I got to play the game of clicks. So I'm going to stop giving you the truth and I'm start giving you some sensational stuff. Why? Because that allows me to keep my job. So you can't be mad at journalists and news outlets for doing what they do because they're just trying to eat the same way you're trying to eat. So the reality is for all of us is that to get the actual truth these days, you have to do extra work that you did not have to do 15 years ago. You have to listen to more than one source. You got to pick and choose who are the people who are telling you the truth. You got to find out who can you trust on certain subjects, and you got to find your people that you can listen to. My suggestion to all of you is that you find people who are independent. And why? Because by definition, independent people do not have to answer to anyone, whereas people who work at traditional outlets have to answer to a boss. When you answer to a boss, there's a good chance you could be corrupted. So look at the people who went independent. I'll name some who I think are trying to get to the truth. This does not mean everything they say is true. It doesn't mean you have to listen to everything that they say. It doesn't mean you even have to like them. But people who I listen to who are independent, I like them because I know that they're independent, even if I don't agree with everything that they say. Tucker Carlson went independent. He's independent. He used to work at Fox. He's independent now. Megyn Kelly went independent. Candace Owens went independent. Joe Rogan is independent. Joe Rogan's not really giving his opinion. He's interviewing people, but he's independent. I like people who have independent platforms because I know that they're not answering to anyone, which means whatever they say, I have a strong reason to believe that they actually believe it. Now, if you work at CNN or Fox or MSNBC or for some newspaper, or I don't think you could survive independently. This is just my personal opinion. There's a bunch of people out there who I don't think they could survive independently, so they have to work for a platform. I don't trust these people because I believe they're going to say whatever they have to say to keep the paycheck coming. These are the people you shouldn't trust. And it's really up to your personal judgment to know who are those people. And a lot of these people I named. Tucker was at Fox, but he's still doing his thing now that he's off Fox. So he can survive independently. He's still great independent. Look at somebody like Don Lemon. What is he doing now? He's independent. Is he still as strong? Is his voice as strong now as it was when he was on CNN? I would say he got worse. Look at somebody like Joy Reid. Since she got kicked off MSNBC, did she get better or did she get worse? It looks like the strength of her platform got weaker when she got off the main platform. When she got unconnected from the machine, she got worse. Why? Because I don't think she's that good. I don't think Don Lemon's that good. Megyn Kelly got off the machine. She got stronger. Candace Owens got off the machine. She got stronger. So I look at people like that. That's the way I look at folks. And I'm an entrepreneur. So I just have my mind is biased in this direction. I'm just looking, could you stand on your own too and still say the same shit that you're saying and get away with it? So I look at people who are connected to machines and I ask myself, they weren't connected to that machine, but they'd be saying the same thing that they're saying. And often the answer is no. I call these people sellouts because you have to sell out your integrity for the check. So when I say sellout, I'm not just saying it as a pejorative. I can define exactly what it means. You have to sell your integrity for the check. Now, some people get called sellouts even when they're independent, which makes no sense. Who are you selling? What are you selling out? Anyway, because I can, hopefully that answers your question. It's a good question. Well, it's actually not a question. It's a good statement that you made. It's an important one that people need to understand. James Eaton said they won't have to remind them Democrats can't help themselves from being violent. Maybe. Rose said Trump needs to hold both houses. Well, he does right now. We'll see what they do in 26. Democrats are in self-destruct, Patty says. We'll see. Curtis MN said Democrat supports don't understand that. Maybe. We'll see what happens in 26. Now, it's still early. They still got another year. Because I can said I like boring. Well, you're one of few. You have the patience and the discipline to consume the objective truth. Most people will chase the thing that's exciting. Hidden Gems, thanks for the follow. We're going to wrap this up in a moment, folks. We're at 10 o'clock. Rise Lord, thank you. Appreciate it. Terry Alvarez, thanks for the share. A. Russ said, nowadays, even Google is lying. Nowadays. Do you remember the virus 5 years ago? Google been lying. Google didn't just start lying, but I'm glad you figured it out. Donnie Love said, long the days of investigative journalism. Yeah, that's over. I mean, there are people trying to do it online. I mean, Candace Owens is trying to do it with the Charlie Kirk thing. The thing is, she can't get access to all the information, so that's the problem. So she has to speculate because they won't give her all the information. She's trying, but she can only go so far. Juan D's, thanks for the follow. Because I can't say people don't want to dig that far. This is true. Joey Z said we should reward integrity. Yeah, we should. Should. Elizabeth said, can you suggest independent sources? Yeah, I gave you a few. When it comes to everyday news, I listen to Megyn Kelly. She's pretty good with the everyday news. Here's what happened today. And she offers her opinion at the same time. She's what she called herself this. What she call herself? An opinion-based journalist? Something that she's called it something like that. Which is what she does. She offers her opinion, but she also tells you what happened. I like listening to her also because she always has guests on the show. So she always has all these other people who are in the media and in the news. She has every episode, she has other people on there that talk about stuff. And I learned about a bunch of other people by listening to her show, people I never heard of. So I learned about Glenn Greenwald from her. I learned about James C.W. Cook from her. I learned about several others who I can't even remember. So many people, she always has different people on the show. So I like listening to her because she has guests on. She'll have people who are on the left on her show, and she'll go back and forth with them. So I like her for everyday news. As far as deep dives on certain subjects, I like Candace. As far as interviews with long-form interviews, I like Joe Rogan. As far as talking about the news as it's happening, maybe in a little bit more in-depth, like every day, but more in-depth, is I go to Tucker. So those are people I like the most, if I had to name a few. And then I go to X. X, I just look and see what everybody is saying. So on X, I follow a bunch of people who I don't even agree with just to see the dumb shit that they say. But I know that they're influencing a lot of people. So I listen to what they say because I know that it's influencing others. Josh said, if you try to be objective and don't pick sides on anyone on social media, they get upset. Well, some of them do. Jay Rocker said, Candace Owens and Don Lemon are killing it right now. I wouldn't put them in the same category. I think Candace Owens has a lot more substance than Don Lemon. But Don Lemon has his fan base. I don't think he's as strong now as he was when he was on CNN. And I'm not sure he can keep it up. I think in the next 5 years, Don Lemon is going to get significantly worse because his thing is, Don Lemon is much more on the race hustling angle. He put a video out last week saying that white men, all they can do is violence. And Don Lemon is married to a white man. It makes no sense. Lisa said, do you consider yourself to be independent? Yes, if you want to give me the label independent. I'm not really on any side. I don't have a side politically. I just look at what's happening and see what I see. And as far as politicians go in general, I don't trust any of them, as I've said to you all many times. I say every American, the biggest vote you need to make is for yourself. You need to vote for yourself to the point that whatever politicians do does not severely affect your everyday life. If something that a politician does severely affects your everyday life, you want to get yourself out of that position to where that can happen. Whit Michelle says Stephen A. Smith. No, he doesn't qualify. Stephen A. Smith is as far as politics goes, he has nothing to offer. He's an empty vessel. I mean, he can recite the talking points and all that, but no, he's an empty vessel. Barb Shibley said, I trust you. That's why I tune in every morning. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. KB said, my husband thinks I'm a conspiracist because I like him too. Yeah, well, that's the smear that they put on him. A. Russ said, Don Lemon and Joy Reid are ignorant and racist. Well, they're both racist. That I can agree with. They are both racist. Jay Rocker said, I don't think Lemon got worse. His skill set, he's the same guy. I think his platform is going to get weaker because he has no substance. That's what I think about Don Lemon. Again, he just put out a video saying that white men they don't know how to do, paraphrasing, they're just violent. I'm like, dude, you're married to a white man. How are you going to make that video and put it up? Well, Heck said the mainstream media lied for the Democratic Party. Yes, they did. Creep Boy said, which of your books teach most on debate? I don't teach debate, but I have a book called The Power Presence Protocol, which is not available yet. When it is available, you're going to see it on the shelf behind me. You can't see it yet because it is, I'm still waiting for it to come in the mail. I sent it to the printer and it is printing right now. And the last I heard is expected to arrive between October 17th and October 20th for the paperback, and the hardcover is coming between the 23rd and the 29th. So we're still about 3 weeks away from the book arriving to where I can show you the actual book. But it's called the Power Presence Protocol. And that's actually a program that I teach. And there's a manual that comes with it. So that'd be the closest. But generally, you don't want to have to debate. If we're talking like politics, then you can talk about it. But outside of politics, you shouldn't have to debate anything. If I'm not talking about politics, I don't go back and forth with anybody on any subject. Elena, thank you for the follow. Ray J. Dig said, I love the tie. Thank you. Roseanne said, you're the best on television. Thank you. Jay Rocker said, what makes Candace better than women? I believe Candace has more substance than Don Lemon. That's just my personal opinion. Case in point, Don Lemon just put out a video saying that white men are racist while he's married to a white man. That makes no sense. Now, how could you say that when you're married to a white man? White men are racist, but you're married to a white man? I mean, white men choose violence is what he said, not racist. They choose violence. Now, he's saying that to rile up his base audience. The problem is, if that's what you're coming up with in 2025, that to me says you have very little substance. I don't believe Don Lemon has much by way of substance. Now, other people may disagree. Don Lemon has fans. I don't think he can keep up what he's doing over the long term, because if that's what you're saying in 2025, that tells me that you don't have much to say. So you came up with that because it gets the audience riled up again. But if you actually had substance, you could say something of substance. That's not a thing of substance to say that white men just choose violence. That's not a substantial argument, especially when Don Lemon is the same guy. When he was on TV about 10, 12 years ago, J. Rocker, since you're asking, Don Lemon was on TV saying, here's what black families need to do. Black families need to be together. Black men need to do their job. We need to raise responsible black men so we have less crime in the black community. Don Lemon was saying that about 12, 13 years ago. Now he's on this white men choose violence, and he picks the side based on which way the wind is blowing so that he can have an audience. If you have to do that, you don't have substance. If you say what you actually believe and where you're at, the direction you're actually looking, regardless of which way the wind is blowing, that proves to me that you have substance. That's just my personal frame for it. Candace Owens right now is saying some things that a lot of people don't like, but she's standing on it. That tells me that she has substance. Doesn't mean you have to agree with her. It tells me that she has substance, that she's standing on it, even though she's getting a ton of pushback from a whole lot of people. Freedom Rider said, Google finally admitted to lying, put blame on Biden administration. Yeah, they've been lying. Yali, thanks for the follow. Alicia said, thanks for sharing. Common sense is refreshing. Well, thank you. J. Rocker said, Kelly is not independent. Yes, she is. She owns her own platform. Her platform is literally called MK Media. That stands for Megan Kelly Media. And she's got like 5 or 6 shows underneath the umbrella of her own platform. I listen to her show every day, so she is independent. Michelle, thank you for the hand hearts. And A-Russ said, Don Lemon killing it. Yeah, well, he still has fans. I mean, he has a fan base. There will always be people who will listen to Don Lemon. He was on TV. You're on TV for as long as he was, you'll always have fans. He has a built-in fan base that will never go away. But he doesn't have substance. He says whatever is going to get him clicks. And I say, if you're just saying stuff to get clicks, you don't have substance. You can be popular and not have substance. Those are two different things. Cigarettes are popular. Candy bars are popular. Doesn't mean they have substance. Nicole said, Don is getting desperate for relevancy. Well, he has to be. What else is he going to do? He has no other choice. And that's what I mean. When I talk about people in media, is that somebody like Don Lemon, what else could he do if he wasn't doing what he's doing? He has no other skills. I don't know how old Don Lemon is. How old is Don Lemon? How old is Don Lemon? He's probably late 40s. Let's see. Don Lemon age. I'll say he's maybe about 48, but I'm just guessing. Oh, Don Lemon's 59. He looks young. Don Lemon's damn near 60 years old. So he's about the same age as Kamala Harris. He can't do anything else. He ain't changing. What do they say about teaching old dogs new tricks? He got to do what he got to do. Elena said, do you see the country as being ruined by a criminal? Really?
Strawberry cheesecake.
What criminal are you talking about? I'm assuming you're referring to Trump, but come on. Elisa said, do you think our government is bought and being blackmailed by the country government? I've heard that. I'm not going to dive into that today, Alicia, but I've heard that. I'll just say that. I've heard it. We did a live. I talked about that country about 2 or 3 days in a row, maybe about 3 months ago. We were talking about Mr. Netanyahu and how he's been claiming that Iran is about to have weapons and they're about a month away. He's been saying that since the 90s. And here we are, 2025. He's still saying it. So do with that what you wish. Thank you for the finger heart, Alicia. Whit Michelle said, I like Stephen A. Smith because he's not biased with his perspective. Well, Stephen A. Smith is not biased with his perspective. The problem is Stephen A. Smith works for ESPN. And when you work for a company like that, there are certain things you can say, certain things you can't say. Stephen A. Smith told everybody to get the jab. I mean, so you take that for what it's worth. Stephen A. Smith said nothing when there was a man on a women's swim team at the University of Pennsylvania. Yet he had a whole lot to say when a black girl, alleged that she was being called racial slurs during a game at BYU a few years ago, that Duke volleyball player. Remember that? Stephen A. Smith had a ton to say about that, even though he never talks volleyball. But when a man was on a women's swim team at the University of Pennsylvania, he said nothing. So Stephen A. Smith is still bought and paid for because he works for ESPN. He has no choice. So he can get on his own platform and play independent, which is what he does, similar to Charlemagne the God. But they're both leftists who claim independent because claiming Democrat now makes you look stupid. So what else is he going to say? Of course he's going to claim he's independent. And he can repeat the talking points very well. But in Stephen A. Smith, I consider him an empty vessel when it comes to politics. Even sports, he doesn't have much. The Addict said, will your book be available on Audible? All my books are already on Audible. Everything's on Audible now. Regina Hall, thanks for the follow. A few more comments, then we'll let this go, folks. Lisa said, you think I already answered that one? Chris said, Lemon seeming self-loathing making that comment. Well, he got to do what he got to do for attention. Jay Rocker with a straw man there. I'm not even addressing that one. You got to come with something better than that. I know it's late in the live, Jay Rocker, but come on. Come with some substance. Kuya Ben said, Don Lemon show how weak he is. Well, he doesn't have anything else to say. So what is he going to say? Bar B said, Don Lemon flips his own stance like Flipper. Well, again, he does what he has to do. Well, Heck said, Kelly used to dislike Trump. Yeah, she did. Jay Rocker said, I mean, Kelly isn't independent politically. Well, so who is? I don't think most people are independent politically. She has but whatever she says, I believe she believes it. Because again, her paycheck is not tied to being Republican, nor is it tied to being Democrat. Whereas, let's see, who's somebody who's on the left? What's the woman, Abby Phillip? Her paycheck is tied to being on the left. She can't come out and say something in support of Donald Trump to keep her job at CNN. So that's what I mean. You can have whatever political opinion you want. I'm talking about, are you financially connected to having an opinion? But your personal opinion, if you're independent, I believe that you believe it. That's what I'm saying. User said they're confusing independent, a party with independent influence of. Yes, exactly. So you just cleared it up right there. A-Russ said everything Don Lemon says, his stupid opinion that he says are facts. Yeah, I don't like when people do that. They conflate opinion with facts. And I think people know the difference. People say it now. People just get used to saying facts because they believe something. But it's not true. Nicole said, I love how people forget Trump was our president before. That's true. Alfonso Miller, thanks for the follow. Joanne, thanks for the like. All right, everybody. So make sure y'all text me so you can be in my texting community. My text community, my number is 305-384-6894. Those of you watching on TikTok, the number's in my bio. Text me at my number, 305-384-6894. Text me the word live, L-I-V-E. Text me the word live to my number. It's in my bio. So as soon as I end this live, just get that number off my bio and text me. And you can be in my texting community. A-Russ said he will literally say, and that's a fact. Everybody says that. That's what people say. People will say an opinion. Like, it's beautiful in Florida, and that's a fact. That's not a fact. It's an opinion. But everybody says it now, so it's almost become like normal colloquial language to just call something a fact as a way of emphasizing your point. I don't like that people do it, but everybody does it. So, oh yeah, make sure you text me again in my text community. I might change the link in my profile to just go straight to my texting. I think I'll probably just change it that way. I will be back tomorrow. Topic, we don't know. Do you get a strawberry cheesecake for texting? LOL. No, you don't get I'll give you one right now.
Strawberry.
So there's the last strawberry cheesecake of the day. Instagram said they're going to kick me off if I keep using sounds. I don't know why they said that. But this is not even a music sound. It's a soundboard sound. So Instagram, what the hell are y'all talking about? Y'all need better moderators. But anyway, we'll be back tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern, folks. I do these live streams 8 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So if you like this one, come back tomorrow. Make sure you are following me. Make sure you text me. I'm going to change the link in my bio on TikTok. The link in my bio is for Work on Your Game University, which is where I do all my coaching. Any of you want to work with me directly, I have a coaching program called, we have the Circle. We have our consulting program. We have our high ticket stuff. We got our low ticket entry level stuff. Go to the link in my profile for that. Text me at the number in my bio to get into my texting community. Number is 305-384-6894. Actually, I'm not changing the link. Keep that link, Work on Your Game University. If you want to work with me directly, go there. You want to get in my text community, daily motivation every day, Monday motivation, weekly motivation every Monday. Text me at my number down below, or in the bio, by the way, or in the pinned comment, those of you watching on other apps. I will see everybody tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great Tuesday. Work on your game. We are out of here.